Thank you and welcome to the Town Council meeting of Monday, September 25th. It is just after 7 p.m. We are here in Council Chambers. First agenda item is the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Councillor Auclair.
Present.
Councillor Carrasco.
Excused.
Councillor Clements.
Present.
Councillor DePietro. Councillor McKenzie.
Present.
Councillor Manna.
Present.
Councillor Morales.
Excused.
Councillor Nash.
Present.
Councillor Steves.
Present.
6 present, 2 excused, and 1 absent.
Thank you. The agenda item number 3, consider and accept the Town Council meeting minutes of September 11th, 2017.
So moved.
Second.
Any corrections? Okay. Councilor Manna, we'll start with you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you. Just on the first page under agenda item number 4, it's subcommittees with the general government, where it says, it talks about Councilor Manna said developing a bylaw should not have been included in the resolution language. I also said that this was a whole new item. And if you turn over onto the back of that page, it shows, after I get done talking in regards to the allowing, they discussed the town manager going to the attorney. It says Councilor Manna said this item at a general government subcommittee should have been its own item, and councilors should have been afforded the right to have this discussion at a regular council meeting. This should go, that paragraph right there should go with the bylaws, because that's what I was referencing, so I'm sure it just got mixed up. And I believe I didn't say council, well, I might have said council meeting, but I said either a new item, under new items it should have been, or it should have went under, on a new general government. So if we could just make that correction. Everything else looked good though. Thank you.
Okay, so
Am I
in light
confusing
of,
you?
pardon me?
Did I confuse you?
I'm sure you confused a lot of us. So in light of, it's okay though, in light of open meeting laws and various other concerns that we've had recently, we've come to the conclusion, I think, that it would be best if there are concerns with the meeting minutes prior to the meeting, that you bring them up, that everyone bring them up. If there are concerns at a meeting such as this and they become lengthy, such as yours has, then I would suggest that you submit the concerns in writing, and then we can vote on the meeting minutes. We can postpone voting on the meeting minutes until they are exactly the way everybody wants, and therefore we don't have to worry about amending them or changing them or doing anything to them. They are a document of the council, and it is important that they are as accurate as each councilor wants them to be. So rather than be confused and have to go back and forth with changing of things, if you're not going to bring it in writing at that time for our recording clerk for that evening, or let us know prior to the meeting, then I would highly recommend that we all agree to postpone meeting minutes that are not fully vetted and correct, and then just vote them at the next meeting. Open meeting law suggests voting them at your next current meeting or within the next 3 meetings whenever possible. So we are well within the law to do that, and you had a number of changes, so I would ask you to make the corrections and submit them so that we can get them in proper as you would like your changes to be. Having said that, I will move on to Councillor Nash and see what his changes or corrections are.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For you, just a couple of quick notes that really are of no consequence, except that I would call your attention to page 3 at the top. First sentence, Councillor Nash thanked the high school principal in the interim. I'd like to insert the word receiver after interim, please. And I can happily email this off later on if it becomes necessary, but at the bottom, next to last sentence, Councillor Auclair said the land purchase was discussed at council level within at least 2 town master plans. I think we have a little too much redundancy or one bad word in there. And I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be overly critical, but it is just a pet peeve. I do read through. Okay, bottom of page 3, next to last sentence, within, right close to the middle.
Yeah, I see you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's all I have. Thank you, Madam Chair.
So again, if it's simply a typographical error or a little bit of language, then I don't have a problem with that. I just would rather it be very simplified for all and very clear going forward, because they are our documents and our records. So I would then entertain a motion to, right now we have the,
Well, since there's one on the floor, I'll
Yeah.
withdraw my motion then.
you want to withdraw your motion?
I withdraw my second.
All right, so we are going to wait and put this on the next agenda to consider and accept these minutes. All right, and we'll get the corrections.
So, Madam
Councilman.
Chair, do you suggest I send these to Yvonne?
Yeah, I would suggest you send them to me.
Send them to
And then
you.
we'll make sure that they get to where they need to be.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Okay? You can just
Yeah.
give it to me however you want it, a piece of paper on that note, or you can get an electronic copy of this, fix it with your, highlighted in red as we've done, and submit it that way, whatever's easier for you.
Thank you.
Councilor McKenzie?
Yes, I've noticed that on agenda item number 3, where it says accept minutes, and this is just a point of respect. I see that all throughout, it does say basically counselor this, counselor that, and then when it comes to my abstention, it just says McKenzie, and I would prefer that it's listed as Counselor McKenzie. I think it shows a little bit more decorum.
Okay, absolutely.
Thank you.
So noted, and we'll just make sure our recording clerks are aware.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, then we will wait on that. The next item is to consider and accept council of the whole meeting minutes of September 11th, 2017.
So moved.
Second.
Are there any additions or deletions on this? Okay. I do have something myself, which I've written and I'm happy to hand in, and you can decide whether or not you want this to be the final. On the second page, flip it over, page 2, the 1 to 3rd paragraph from the bottom. After finishing review of the latest draft document, Chairman Clement said she will make changes based on comments, and it says, and bring this amended document back, and what it was, and send to councilors prior to the meeting as amended for any more comment. And then the motion that was made, you can correct me, Councilor Steves, if I'm wrong, a motion was made by Councilor Steves, seconded by Councilor O'Clair, to send the draft document as amended at tonight's meeting to full council for approval, but it was at the next council meeting, Monday, September 25th.
It was, yes.
So we would like that.
That was the intent.
Okay. All right, Councilor McKenzie?
Yes, we're referring to the September 11th, 2017 Council of the Whole meeting.
That happened after the council meeting.
Okay, I'm looking here at item number 2. It says Estrada. I think that's should that have been someone else?
Yes,
Oh, true.
good catch.
I didn't either.
Okay.
Nash instead.
Yeah, Nash was there.
Yeah. Thank you,
Good
sir.
catch.
Thank you, Councilman.
Okay.
Anytime. I do think you should be included.
So I'm happy to submit these to, if you want to vote on these tonight, I can submit this to the recording clerk so that the actual notes are there, if that works. Okay. Any other corrections? Seeing none. All those in favor? As it's unanimous? Okay, and I'll hand you this afterwards.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Moving on, agenda item number 4, subcommittee summaries. And we note that the relevant minutes will be read at each agenda item. And the first one is general government.
I haven't had a meeting recently, but I do have one coming up for Wednesday at 6:30 in the Veterans Room. There's a bunch of things on the agenda, including an appointment to the Airport Commission. We're going to be discussing landfill bylaw, town employee job descriptions, legal requirements regarding interview do's and don'ts. So that's at 6:30 on Wednesday.
Thank you. Department of Public Works is Councilor DePietro. He's not here. We don't have any minutes in our packet on that. Education and Human Services. That is Councilor Nash.
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you. We have a meeting scheduled for this Wednesday at 6 p.m. ahead of General Government, and it will be in the Veterans Room as well. No minutes at this stage. Thank you.
4D, Planning and Development, Councilor Clare.
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you. We did have a meeting on the 12th of September. A couple of the items are on this evening's agenda, including, or the two items that are on tonight's agenda is the appointment of Patricia Sharon to the Southbridge Trails Committee and the recommendation to appoint Michael Marchetti to the Planning and Development Subcommittee. Both were passed unanimously at the subcommittee, and then the other item that was discussed was the presentation of project eligibility application for 5/15 K Street in Southbridge Investments LLC. Just really quickly, that was a presentation by Chip Norton of the of Southbridge Investments LLC from down in the AO complex, and his project to convert the old mill building that is on the street to 48 rental units. And he's going to be fully preserving the facade of the building and all of the historical qualities that makes it so unique. If you'd like to know more about it, the minutes have been submitted, so please do look at those. Thank you. And no meeting scheduled, too.
Very good. And 4E is protections of persons and property.
Thank
That's
you, Madam
Councilor
Chair. I do not have any minutes to read, and I do not have any meetings planned at this time. Thank you.
Okay, might I correct, there's minutes in the packet?
No, those were a correction from Mr. Nash from,
Oh,
he asked
okay.
me, so Yvonne just put them in the packet.
Okay.
Those were from the last one. So, and I went over, I summarized them at the last meeting, and they are a public record for people to get. So.
Very good. I am going to ask also that on a couple of things, again, just some points on the meeting minutes. You, for instance, on yours, I'll just point yours out, not to pick on you, but I have it in front of me. You've listed Town Council of the Whole and PPP Subcommittee. They need to be listed the way we post them on the agenda, which is a meeting of the PPP Subcommittee, a joint meeting of the PPP Subcommittee and the Town Council. That way, it meets the requirements.
I will make that correction also, and I will send that into Yvonne.
Right. Well, it's not just you, I'm just making sure people are
Yeah.
clear that when we do our meeting minutes, the other thing they recommend is putting the word draft on a set of meeting minutes for anybody, which is why you'll see some in your packet that say draft. That way, once they're voted on, then the draft will come off. That way, it's clear. It's clearer to anybody publicly who might get a copy of that original, that was not the final
So
version.
This is
so.
just coming up to me, so I
Oh, no,
just...
I'm telling it to everybody,
The
though,
draft,
Councilman.
I never, the whole 4.5 years I've been here, I've never seen draft on the meeting minutes.
Well, I've been really paying attention to the open meeting law information, so there's a few things
Can I
that are...
request a recording clerk for my meetings going forward?
I think we all wish we could have one.
We'll talk about that.
I think we should.
Okay, all right, let's move on. Councilor McKenzie?
Yes, on the, on the, not necessarily on PPP, but on a general concept, each subcommittee that meets, they do not necessarily have to list that it is a subcommittee / town council meeting.
Absolutely, they do.
They do.
Yes, whenever a public body is meeting, it could be potentially there as a quorum, you have to say both. You have to say that it's a joint meeting of.
When did this actually go into effect?
Well, the open meeting law requires it in order to participate, but we voted on it ourselves under rules and regs last week in December, I think we passed it. It was January?
Right.
We spent many, many meetings on it last fall, making sure that we were in compliance. And in the new open meeting law training, it actually says if joint bodies are going to meet, you have to specifically state that joint bodies are meeting. Now, sometimes we don't have a quorum, and then we state that at the meeting, usually, once we meet.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? All right, so I think we're good on meeting minutes now. We'll bring up the general government if we're not. Okay, moving on. Chairman's announcements. So we have a few. We have Household Hazardous Waste Day is coming up on Saturday, September 30th, 9 to 1 p.m. The Casella Waste Services Facility at 165 Barefoot Road, across from the landfill. There, it's open to Southbridge and Charlton residents only. No food or sanitary waste will be accepted, no commercial waste will be accepted, and no latex-based paints will be accepted. If you have latex-based paints, your best deal is to take the lid off and let it dry out. Once your latex-based products are dried out, they can then just go into the trash. The Southbridge Cable Access Channel 192 has more information. There's no pre-registration. Proof of residency will be required, such as your driver's license or current utility bill. In order to accommodate everyone, there's a 10-gallon limit per household for paint and chemical waste. So that would be your oil-based paints and your other chemicals that you need a place to get rid of. There's a whole list. It's on our website. And if you have any questions, you can certainly contact Casella Waste Services to see what they accept at 888-532-2735. Again, I encourage you to go to the website and find out what type of products they're taking. Or
Would you repeat that number, please?
Sure. 888-532-2735. Those are for questions about the event or acceptable materials. The SALT Council will be presenting an Oktoberfest for seniors at the Southbridge Community Center on October 12th from 11 to 2:30 p.m. It is free, but you must register by October 1st. Lunch will be served at noon. It's going to include kielbasa, sausage, hot dogs, German potato salad, and 3-bean salad with yummy strudel for dessert. There will be an entertainer. The Happy Five Oompa Band will begin at 1. Free buses are available from the Charlton Senior Center. This is a joint event. Other area towns come to this. The Southbridge, if you want, you can call Pat Haddock at the Southbridge Seniors Center, and she is in charge there at 508-764-5436 to register. Again, Southbridge seniors must call the elder bus directly to arrange for free transportation. If you are interested, you contact the elder bus at 1-800-321-0243. The SALT is Seniors and Law Enforcement Together. That is a wonderful program that is offered a number of times a year at the community service, and the Oktoberfest looks like a lot of fun. So you seniors get out there, bring your friends, and enjoy the day. I would also like to remind everyone that the Ride for Rock, which is to support our own Officer Reddick in his fight against cancer, will be held Saturday, September 30th. The riders will leave from the Southbridge Police Department on Mechanic Street. Registration is 9 to 11, and your kickstands will be up at 11 a.m. It ends with a barbecue that begins at the Italian Club on 20 North Street, 2 to 6 p.m. There'll be raffles, food, live music, and a lot more. Riders are $35, and you get a T-shirt and your dinner. Passengers are $20. And if you just want to go and support the cause, maybe you don't have a motorcycle, you're not into riding motorcycles, then dinner is available for $20. And of course, you get to participate in the live music and the raffles, all in support of Officer Reddick. For information, you can email rideforrock19855. So that's rideforrock19855@gmail.com. Or you can go on Facebook and you can look up Ride for Rock and it will come up on the Facebook. So hopefully you can all get out there and show some great support to our wonderful officer. And tonight we have a little more sadness, but also we're honoring someone very important. Many of you remember Rainey Tremblay, who passed away on Thursday, the 21st, at the age of 92. Rainey was the epitome of a community servant and all-out patriot. Rainey served this council for 23 years, twice as the chairman. He also served the Board of Health for 5 years and the Planning Board for 5 years. But not only did he serve us here in our community, he served in the military as well. He was a proud veteran of the U.S. Army Corps during World War II. He served with the 101st Airborne Division in the European, African, and Middle Eastern Theater. He was a Purple Heart recipient for injuries that he received in the invasion of Normandy. And after this, even though he had been injured, he transferred over to the U.S. Army Quartermaster's Corps and continued his service. And in 2000, he was recognized by the French government for his service rendered to liberating France during the war. That's pretty cool. And if that's not enough, he served us right here in this community in another way as a postal carrier for 30 years. That's quite an endeavor. As many know, that's not the easiest thing to do, and he did it. So tonight, I hope you will join us in a moment of silence for our fallen comrade here, Rainey Tremblay. Thank you, and our hearts and prayers go out to the family at this time. Okay, that is all I have for announcements. We'll move on to town manager's announcements.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Appreciate that. A couple of things. As everyone knows, our country has been hit by a number of hurricanes. So we had Texas and we had Florida, and now the country of Puerto Rico has been seriously, seriously damaged. If anyone's been watching the news reports, it's sad to see what's going on, particularly over there. While it's hard enough to be on the mainland, you can imagine what it's like being on an island, and literally the whole country is without electricity. It is very sad to watch, and of course here in Southbridge, we have many people from Puerto Rico, and families that live here in town have many relatives still in Puerto Rico dealing with this crisis. It was very nice. I've had all kinds of people asking me if Southbridge was going to be doing anything, and I want to put out a name and an organization that is working on this. It's called Southbridge for Puerto Rico. The woman's name, and again, I apologize if I pronounce it wrong, and I'm going to spell it. It's Nida Espino, Nida Espino. Her contact, she said that we could give out her phone number, is 508-277-2068. Again, 508-277-2068. It's brought her name today by Evelyn Rivera in our town clerk's office. I know that the churches are all working together. Councilor Esteban Carrasco is involved in this effort. The churches are all working to try to find a way to not only get money to that island, but also to get things like new clothes and water and food and items that they need. So there's going to be a lot of effort over the next couple of months working on this issue. Please contact her if you can participate. I've also had some conversations with Harrington Hospital. A number of their staff members would like to go over there and help as well. So they're trying to organize an effort. And our school system is also organizing efforts to try to help Puerto Rico as well. So you're seeing the real Southbridge come forward and really do everything they can to help the community over there. Families are hurting, and everybody, a lot of people in town know somebody real that's over there. So my heart really goes out to all the people involved in that, and obviously the people involved would appreciate any support that you can give them. Also, I don't know if anyone has seen them yet. I know that Councilor Nash was kind enough to send me pictures today, but there are beautiful new bike racks in front of the library. Kudos to our Recreation Director, our DPW Director, and our Library Director for all working together to see to it that those bike racks come up. It's nice to see that, and they put nice concrete slabs down. No, Councilor Nash had sent me some photos, so I put them on our town Facebook page so people can see it. But I think that's a nice benefit for the people in town. Also, I think everyone, and I know that some people very interested in this issue are in the audience, there's been a very controversial issue regarding beavers and how beavers are impacting a town road here in Southbridge. The Board of Health the other night made a vote to move forward to allow trapping. After further review this morning and talking to attorneys for the State Ethics Commission, it was ruled essentially, or they explained to me very clearly that because a member abstained, there was only 3 members who could vote, because that member actually abstained from the vote, that there was not a quorum of the meeting, and therefore the vote was invalid. Before I even got to work, I was on the phone with Heather, letting Heather know to get a hold of the contractor, trapper, to let them know not to move forward. The good news is that the trapper has not moved forward, so no animals have been trapped. That's good news. I want to point out clearly that the Board of Health acted in their, the way they thought was the best. There was no, as Councilor Steve said, there was no intention for them to do something wrong. They were clearly trying to follow the rules as they knew them to be. This is a very difficult issue to understand in terms of how sometimes meeting protocol works and stuff. So after reviewing the attorneys this morning, I notified the Board of Health chairman and Board of Health members, as well as the trapper and our Department of Health to stop moving forward on this. The Board of Health is expecting to have another vote, probably going to be a couple of weeks because one of our members is on vacation for a couple of weeks, but they need to do this properly, whatever that process is. My apologies go out to those people who thought this issue was over and did not want to further debate it, but we as a town have to do things according to the law, and I think we caught it and did a great job in trying to make sure that the process that goes through is the right process. Also, want to bring up a couple of issues. Again, we talked about the last meeting, Red Ribbon Week, October 23rd to 31st. Basically, we're trying to bring attention to the issue of substance abuse. The town manager's drug council, anti-drug council, is working hard to promote this issue in all kinds of great organizations, including Harrington Hospital and Spectrum and our health department, the school system. Everybody's involved to try to open up dialogue on the issue of illegal drugs and substance abuse. So if you want to be part of this, I think it's going to be great. It's as easy as putting a ribbon on your tree in your front yard, putting a sign like this in your window. I know that a couple of councilors said that they'd like to bring these out to area businesses and put them on the windows. If you want to get involved, it's www.redribbon.org, and they have a book on there that can tell you all kinds of things and how you can get involved in this very important issue. And basically the theme this year is your future is key, so stay drug-free. Also, I've started a new program in working with our public access station. We are trying to promote economic development here in Southbridge. And a lot of people are very involved, the Southbridge Business Partnership, the manufacturers. We are trying to promote local businesses. So we created a show on public access called Showcasing Southbridge Businesses. And I'm going to be going into various businesses, showing a little bit about that business, and letting people here in Southbridge know the benefits of a particular business. So the first one was with Cormier Jewelers, and we explained on their 75th year anniversary all about that business. And recently we did Dan Sabalas, I think is the right? Ceballos, who's a local chiropractor who just came to town. And we've developed essentially little like TV commercials talking about what that business does. And I'm going to continue doing that to try to create more economic development activities and to get people excited about all the great businesses we have here in town. Also want to note that at my last department heads meeting, I basically did an overview of what we call Chapter 30B procurement law. Chapter 30B is the state procurement process and how you have to go about purchasing items, goods and services, or land in any town or in the state of Massachusetts. So all the department heads got some Chapter 30 overview training, which I think is good, so they understand the basics of how to do requests for quotes, how to do invitation to bids, how to do requests for proposals, and it just make all of them a little sharper when it comes to getting ready to make procurements. The concept obviously behind that is that the more competition we get for procurements, the more tax savings we have for our taxpayers, because we want to get goods and services at the lowest price possible. So all those things are going on, and with that, Madam Chairman, I turn it back to you. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on. Agenda item number 7 is swearing in and presentations, and we have one presentation and one overview this evening.
Actually, I have one more announcement. It's just
Okay, yeah. Do you want to talk about that? Yeah. One more. We're going to go back to the agenda.
I'm sorry, there's one other important issue that I just need to address. There's been a lot of discussion over an issue we described as Hunters Ridge subdivision. Many of you know it's a subdivision that has not been able to get snow plowing services because it's a private road and the developer has went bankrupt. I just wanted the people at Hunters Ridge to know that at the next Planning Commission, it is intention for the Planning Commission to vote to request $180,000 that was set aside in what we call a tri-party agreement between the bank that loaned the money for the development, the developer, and the town. And the town is going to be taking legal action to move that process forward. So those residents can be happy that the Planning Commission is going to make that vote at their next meeting. And we will see if the bank will honor what we believe is a legitimate legal agreement, then give the town that $180,000. If not, we will then be looking at other potential legal action. The town is working in every effort it can to try to resolve that issue, and there will be more to come on that issue, but I wanted councilors to know that that issue is moving forward. there had intended to be an executive session to discuss this more in detail tonight, but it did not get on the agenda, so we may very well be holding a special meeting to discuss this issue more in detail. Because it's a legal matter, a lot of it will have to be discussed in executive session. Thank you, Madam Chairman, for that ability to correct that.
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you to the town manager. So should this $180,000 go towards the bank and whatnot, that still doesn't solve the problem for the snow plowing. What's the status on that?
Again, the
Hopefully,
issue...
hopefully it stays 90 degrees through the winter.
So the issue is, I can say we're looking very seriously at that matter. That's going to be subject to our executive session discussion. So I have an answer to that. I just don't want to give it to you without being executive session because it involves legal issues.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. Now we'll move on to presentations. 7A, pavement management presentation by our DPW Director, Heather Blakely. This has come up a number of times in subcommittee and here on council floors to what can we do about the state of our roads, tending, with the exception of winning the lottery.
Winning the lottery would be good.
Would be good, so.
I would highly recommend if anybody wins the lottery to give us the money. Yes, thank you. So this is quite an extensive, but I'm going to move quite quickly. I will say that for the public, I will put this up on the website probably tomorrow as soon as we can make sure the format's going to work. And there's some detailed information here, but you know, this is still concept. I wanted to get the information out there because I know I keep saying I need $1 million every year for 10 years. Well, this kind of shows why I need $1 million every year for 10 years. Okay, no, it doesn't want to work. Okay, just a quick overview. So in the presentation, I'm going to go over some background of what we've done, what the study that has been done has found, the basics of pavement management, the recommendations and options to proceed going forward, and the costs. First, the background. VHB, who is a consultant, was hired to do a pavement management study. They performed detailed inspection of all the roads, sidewalks, and curving. They developed multiple funding scenarios based on how much money we would have, including a Chapter 90 base rate, $1 million a year, and $2 million a year. The draft report was submitted to the town in February 2012, and that is being used currently, the ratings and the recommendations from the report, to determine which projects are done and what priority. So I want to give you a background also of how the costs have changed since 1995. In 1995, Chapter 90 funding was $150 million for the whole state. That was divided up in the formula that is given out. Now, it's $200 million. The cost of asphalt in place at the time from 1995 to 99 was about $25 a ton. Now, it is $65 a ton, which actually results in a decrease from where it was at its high point. What I will say with this, as the cost of gas goes up, so does the cost of asphalt. So every one of us drives a car, I'm sure, and has seen what gas prices have done. We expect the cost of asphalt to go back up close to that $80 a ton in place. What does that mean? Well, we've seen a 33% increase in funding. We've seen a 160% increase in the cost of asphalt. That partly is part of the reason why our dollar is just not going as far. The costs have outpaced the funding that we've been receiving. For the last 2 years, you can see on the bottom there, our Chapter 90 funding has basically been level. There is a formula that's more than just the amount of roads. It has to do with your population and also your economic development that determines how much money you get. Okay, theory of pavement management. Pavement management is the practice of planning for pavement repairs and maintenance. The goal is to maximize the value and life of the pavement network. So, we look at all of the roads, we do an evaluation on them, and then we determine, based on the type of what we see in that evaluation, it's a visual observation evaluation, what should be done. So how do we determine that, and what do we need? So to apply pavement management, there are different techniques, and some of them you've seen, some of you might not have. Full depth reclamation is when we redo a road from top to bottom. We grind up the pavement, we compact it, sometimes we strip the pavement off and put more sub-base down. We totally start over. Mill and overlay is when you mill down a couple inches and you put a new layer of asphalt on top. Preventive maintenance. These are newer techniques. Chip sealing, microsurfacing, fog sealing. It's like if you coat your driveway, it's similar to that. You're trying to bring it back, give it some life, seal in all the little cracks, seal in all the micro cracks that could be there. And then there's also routine maintenance, crack sealing. We've started crack sealing in the last couple of years. We've done it for 3 years. Crack sealing maintains those cracks in the pavement so the water doesn't get underneath and actually cause potholes. You can't do every one of these on every single road. Well, you could full depth reclaim every road, but you don't need to. On our newer roads that are just starting to crack, we want a crack seal that extends the life. Then after we crack seal, we may want a fog seal so that we extend the life. It's a process. There's different techniques based on the road. Road conditions. Based on the 2012 report, they evaluated 77.7, lucky sevens, miles of roadway and assigned a rating called a PCI, a Pavement Condition Index. It's based on a 0 to 100 scale, 100 being excellent and 0 being impossible. Approximately 45% of the town's roads were in poor shape. That's a PCI under 72, based on that report from 2012. The total backlog of cost to renovate the roads in 2012, I keep on saying two, but 2012, was $21 million. Without any additional funding, which is basically what we've been, is only Chapter 90 funding since then, they projected that we would be at a $30 million backlog in 2017. Here we have a visual representation of, by mile of road, of what we need to do. So base rehab, that's your full depth reclamation. Mill and overlay, that's what I described. So 26.6 miles needed complete full depth. Preventive maintenance, 18.3, routine maintenance, 10.4, and do nothing, meaning they're in really good shape, but again, remember, 2012, we had 13.5. So keep an eye on that. I wish I could show both these at the same time, but. So cost. You can see now that base rehab cost is a much bigger piece of that pie. It's much more extensive to do full depth rehab. Here's that graph that I talked about a little bit, projecting out where our PCI would be. So the red bottom line, okay, maybe we're a little bit better than that because we've been doing more like 450,000 a year. That was the current Chapter 90 money at that time when they did this graph. They projected that we need $1 million a year to keep the roads stable back in 2011-12. To improve road conditions, you needed $2 million a year. So this is a standard industry slide that you take your PCIs basically on the left from good to failed, and what you see is this curve. This curve is basically telling you that it's cheaper to renovate earlier and then very expensive to renovate later as it goes up. So here is a picture that I found from a different presentation. This is an interesting road. Two towns basically own right down the middle of it. One town has decided, in 2004, they decided both they were going to mill and fill, 2-inch mill and fill. One in 2010 decided they were going to do a crack sealing and microsurfacing. you can see what's happened to the two roads. This is an actual road in actual conditions. So the one on the left, basically at this point, all you could do is full depth reclaim. You might get away with a mill and fill, but those cracks are probably way too deep to save that road at this point. So I was talking to someone in the industry, and they said, oh, and they were quoting me numbers on a 24-inch paved roadway. And I kind of said, well, that's really nice, but the majority of my roadways are more like 40-foot wide roadways that need to be paved. Yes, I have 24s, but I have 40s. So this is the estimated cost just for different treatment technologies, for those different, what we need to do. If I have a 40-foot wide roadway, there's your $500,000 per mile to do. And that doesn't include it really doesn't include your drainage, and that really doesn't include any real sidewalk work. It's probably higher and closer to $250,000 then. So it just gives you the range of different treatment the different treatments that we are looking at doing. Some of them we already do, like I said, we've already done crack sealing. We're looking at locations that we possibly could do chip sealing, fog sealing, actually just put a bid out so that we could have prices for all of those. So this is basically the same information in a little different format. Equivalent annual cost. So, yes, crack sealing doesn't get as long a life, but it doesn't cost you as much either. When it's $1.25 and it's extremely expensive per lane mile. Now, this is a 12-foot lane, so it's not full 24 feet. This is 12-foot lane per lane mile. All right. Told you I was going to try to be quick. So, recommendations. 2012 is when the study was done. Everybody recommends basically every 5 to 10 years you have to relook at your indices and make sure that what you're approximating is correct and no major issues came in, and you update anything you've done. So we're at the point now that it makes a lot of sense to redo that. In addition, I would like to have both myself and Matt Desjardins, who's my deputy director, trained to do this so that we wouldn't have to hire outside consultants to do this in the future. But it is a training because we need to know how to score these roads correctly. We want to implement an interactive pavement management program. What we have now is a really nice piece of paper. We've done some upgrades on our GIS so that we can. We need to get a program that we can do the updates on and play with the numbers and play with the scenarios. We want to increase the town's allocation for pavement treatments by $1 million a year over the next 10 years. That basically gives us $1.5 million a year to put into roads. And we need to continue on with our balanced approach of pavement preservation and reconstruction, of doing both full depth, because we do need to address our immediate roads, but we need to protect our roads that are in good shape. So I came up with 2 years of 2 different funding options here. If we can stay, and I know these are small on your, actually, if you flip to the back of your sheets, you should have full-size ones of these, if you want to see this, because I can't even see this on the screen. So the first one is Chapter 90 funding only, using existing or other funds that we know we have in the pipeline. For example, there's already funds set aside for South Street. So, Clemens Hill, Franklin Terrace, which is set aside in a different fund. The old Dudley Road culvert that needs to be replaced. We're looking at doing full-depth reconstruction on Prospect and Marsh Ave. And Gulfwood Road, we've set aside money to do that upper end of Gulfwood Road with whatever, basically from the detour down and whatever if we ever get to the point where we're putting guardrails in across the swamp area. We basically have enough money budgeted to do those projects. In FY19, we've tried to set aside some money because we'd like to do sidewalks and drainage, knowing that some of these will have drainage issues. In addition, we would like to do South Street, Gulfwood Road from Torrey to the town line, which really is where we're stopping previously. And then crack sealing and pavement and preventive maintenance of $125,000. You can see that we've already allocated the $300,000, and we already have some previous allocations in Chapter 90 that haven't been spent. So we could do all those projects. Underfunded, we said there's $150,000 there. Yes, Wally?
Yes, through Madam Chair, to you. I'm looking at this and I'm wondering, with this full depth reconstruction on South Street, Gulfwood Road to the Torrey line, I'm wondering, in South Street, there are gas lines underneath.
That's not the section of South Street we're doing.
Now, what I'm asking is that going to be done before the construction?
The section of South Street that this proposal is actually is not all of South Street. It's starting at Westville and heading north to the town line. The water lines, the sewer lines have already been done in that area and been inspected and refined. This is subject to after the water lines are done. The water lines all need to be replaced from where that comes down. So that's part of the reason why this is delayed to the following year.
Thank you.
But I will say this now, that whenever we redo a full depth road, and probably whenever we want to mill and overlay, maybe not as much as mill and overlay, we'd have to look at it. We have to look at all the conditions of our infrastructure before we do it. Sometimes that delays projects because we need to coordinate in getting the water or the sewer or the gas, right, in some cases with National Grid, and we are sharing actively with National Grid what our plans are so that they can look ahead and make sure that they get their gas lines done.
That makes sense. Thank you.
And I'm sharing with my water and sewer guys to make sure that I know what the condition of those water and sewer lines are.
Thank you.
So we also did an option of what happens if we had an extra $1 million. I could start singing, but I won't, because that would be... So, all the same roads are on there. I should flip to my own, because... But in addition, you start to see things like, well, Hill and Hill Crescent, which are two roads that basically, if we keep plowing them, are going to completely fall apart. But we're also talking about mill and overlays on parts of Mechanic and East Main Street. In the second year, we're talking, which we need to look at doing. I thought this also had Main Street mill and overlay. Oh, Main Street mill and overlay. I know this is a hot button topic for everyone. So FY18, we would be able to start doing Main Street overlay and fix that rutting problem that we have. In the second year, you see we have full depth on Torrey South, but in addition, Ellis Road, in addition, increased pavement, crack sealing, and pavement management. What also is listed there is Ashland Ave Bridge. We have put in for a grant through the small bridge program for that. That's up to $500,000, but the repair costs are $750,000. So we will have to be looking at that. And that bridge is in severe disrepair on certain criteria and needs to be addressed sooner than later. I would say that our bridges are a liability that we aren't really sure what the costs are associated with yet and needs to be looked at more. I have a pretty good liability of what our roads are looking like, but we don't have numbers for all the bridge repairs that we need to do, and they're only going to get worse. Again, need an additional, sorry?
Councilor Mena, do you want to ask a question?
Thank you, Madam Chair. If this is, would you rather I wait till after your presentation? I can wait.
It doesn't really matter.
Okay. So I do have a question in regards to if I had $1 million. For when you say mill and overlay Main Street, I believe, or if memory serves me correctly, that CDGB money was discussed in doing this.
But it hasn't been allocated there.
Okay, but I was under the impression that part of this CDGB money was going to Main Street. This is what I remember in the town meeting. I actually remember the town manager even talking about that at the subcommittee meeting.
This year, the only money that's allocated is for Central Street parking lot that I know of.
Right. But there was supposed to be like an extra 200,000 or something. There was extra money that was supposed to be allocated to Main Street. That's what was discussed at the subcommittee meeting, if my memory serves me correctly.
Councilman, since you mentioned the manager.
Thank you.
Manager.
So you're partially correct. It was discussed, but it was not discussed for CDBG money. It was discussed for free cash. But then we decided not to move forward with that project in free cash. It was part of the free cash allocation in the beginning. And we talked about doing Main Street, and then we decided not to go forward for a variety of reasons. But it was, you're right, it was discussed.
So, yes, I remember it was discussed, and I won't debate it, but I remember CDGB money being discussed about this particular Main Street.
I don't
remember that.
recall any CDBG discussion.
And the Central Street, too.
Yeah, I will recheck back with Rosemary and make sure what her proposal had, but she has not discussed with me anything regarding Main Street. I know that I had been part of a Main Street study for the traffic.
Yep, I remember the study.
And what we could do with the traffic and the traffic lights, and we have some information of that, and actually as part of this upgrade, we would like to do the traffic lights if we could. Again, that's a cost that we kind of have in there as a placeholder, but we've been told it's close to $400,000 to redo the traffic lights, so.
We're going to move the topic along because that can be discussed at
Thank you.
a planning meeting. Continue, please.
So I'm going to say it again. Funded an additional $1 million for road repairs above Chapter 90 funding, long-term. So how do we do this? Other than somebody winning $1 million and giving it to us, which I'd like, we could increase the budget by $1 million with a 2.5% override. I spoke to the assessor today, and he estimated for me that it would be a $1.07 per thousand on the tax rate, or $178 for the average single-family home. The other option is to bond it. $1 million bond for 10 years, and every 10 years of $1 million would end up costing the taxpayers over $12 million. And I would say this, after 10 years, it's not going to go down because you're going to have to keep funding $1 million. So that bond capacity is never going to drop off. And that assumes a 3.5 bond rate, which truthfully, we don't know where that bond market's going.
Sorry.
Nope,
I have
Councilman.
one more question. In regards to the override, say this didn't pass through the voters, could you still go to the bond, or would that be like a conflict type thing because now their taxes are getting raised no matter what?
That's not a
Do
question
you
I could
understand
answer.
what I'm saying? So if the override went to the voters and it got shot down, okay, and then would we be able to still bond out the money because we're still raising their taxes? I mean, they're voting no, but in essence, okay, well, you voted no, but we're still going to do it anyways. Would that be a conflict? Would we be able to do that? I wouldn't want to see that, but it's a question.
So I'm trying to think it out as you're talking. I haven't done any research on this, right? So in theory, yes, you could go to bond, and you could go to bond and you could borrow money to do it. So yes, as long as that bond didn't require a referendum, which I'd have to look and find out if there was any requirement of a referendum to do that size of a bond. I'm just not sure off the top of my head. Yeah. I don't know if you'd have to, if you were going to borrow that large, because you'd be talking, what Heather's saying is you wouldn't be borrowing the $12 million all at once. You'd be borrowing $1 million a year is what you'd be borrowing it. And I don't think there's a requirement to go to referendum for $1 million of borrowing a year. So the answer is, I think you could do it without going to referendum, but you're right, it would be very controversial because you just got voted down, so I wouldn't recommend it. But in theory, I think, yes, you could do it. That's my opinion off the top of my head.
Okay. So I think it is important to say that there are hidden costs to having our roads in disrepair. There's increased vehicle maintenance costs. There's increased costs for even the DPW fleet. Increased costs for snow removal because it's not as easy to do. Increased costs just in our general road maintenance that we do in budget because we're always out patching potholes. Property values decrease and public safety decreases. Because if you're avoiding potholes or hitting potholes, it could be causing accidents. All right, in closing and summary, pavement management is just a tool that we use with sound engineering judgment. Other considerations need to be given to other utilities, including water, sewer, drainage, and gas. Other funding options do exist, including CDBG and the small bridge grants, and they can help, but these funds have multiple demands and are in more targeted areas. Chapter 90 funding is not keeping up with the demands of the deteriorating road infrastructure. I hope this gives you a better overview of what we're facing in the future. Thank you.
Councilor McKenzie.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. This is, as I can see, a very, very well-prepared report, and I thank you for your due diligence in this preparation. However, and I'm just wondering, we're talking about if I had an extra million, where are we getting the money for all of this? This is going to have to be, a lot of this is astronomical. It's going to be, we're going to have to do some serious budget planning, and we're going to have to be looking at this, and we're going to have to do the very, very best that we can with this, but we're not going to be able to, unless the genie comes out of a bottle, we're not going to be able to do much. Well, I'm not going to be able to do all of this, that's for sure. But I do applaud you for your presentation and showing us what we need to do, what has to be done, and yet now we need to worry about the funds to make it happen. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Councilor Steves.
I have a couple of points. I just want to ask you a couple of things. First of all, does this analysis include any projections regarding climate change impacts?
Regarding?
Climate change impacts.
No.
Any idea what that would likely, what kind of impact that would likely have?
I wouldn't even want to try to speculate at this point.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think any of us want to. Also, you mentioned earlier about redoing the original study for PCI levels. Is that in the budget now? What would that? You mentioned 15 grand.
It's not in the budget, but it's much a small portion. We could actually use Chapter 90 funding if that's the way we wanted to go about it.
Okay. And also, what about the cost to training you and?
That's included in the 15 grand.
It is, okay.
We would be trained while they're out doing the study. That's part of the concept.
Good.
Councilor Petro.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Heather, I'm getting the impression that this, as expensive as it's going to be, is actually very conservative. This is just about. This is going to get us by.
Right. This is basically what level, keeping a consistent PCI will keep us right at that current level of that overall index, which is what that middle graph is. This is not the 2 million. This is not increasing our roads to feel like they're so much better off. This means that we're basically only holding status quo. If we don't put in more funding, things are going to get worse.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you. I just want to make a comment. I suppose that this would be really a good discussion to have when the next CDGB grant comes around to discuss possibly doing the full grant for road repairs. I mean, let's, I mean.
I can
let's face
say
it,
that we have done, I mean, you can
We
see
need
the
the money.
results of Chestnut Street, and Overland Street's going to be paved, and Morris Street's going,
Right.
the bottom of Morris Street's going to be paved, Overland Street's going to be paved, Chestnut Street will be all paved. We did another small street, Warren, I should know, Lane off of that when we did it. CDBG money can be used very targeted in a certain area.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very nice to get all the roads done in a certain area, and other infrastructure projects too.
So it's a good discussion to have. I mean, and that's
can be
what the
definitely part of the
subcommittees are
discussion.
for, to utilize that and to discuss that. You know, Main Street's not going to get any better. South Street's not going to get any better. The streets are just deteriorating, and we need to do something about it. And if we're not going to get any extra in our Chapter 90 money, then we have to look at other avenues. And if we could do that grant, if that could be discussed, and we could target that money for specific roads, you know, then that's going to save the taxpayers. So that's what I'm looking at. Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you.
I do have
Oh,
one question.
sorry.
Are you aware of any other federal sources of funds?
Well, we actually are applying for federal funds. That's part of the reason why you don't see anything on here for Hook and those, because we are on the TIP program for that street.
I knew that.
So that is your federal funding mechanism as I know it. You know, that is more long-term. It takes a lot longer to go through that process. But when I look at streets on our pavement management, oh, no, we're not doing that one because we're going to address that with our TIP funding. Main Street could be a TIP candidate. Unfortunately, I don't personally want to wait 5-7 years to address that problem.
Right.
It would be a nice smaller TIP project, and sometimes they look for smaller TIP projects. I mean, the one we're putting in is what we would consider quite on the larger side.
Right.
But again, it's only for certain roads. They have to be federally eligible roads, which we do have certain roads that are. But again, you're talking, I don't know that we really want to wait that long. I think one thing that I need to start planning for is what is the next TIP project that we want to do, and start getting that into the pipeline. The only thing I've been warned about is doing too close together can actually affect your scoring on the one. So I don't want to go in one round and the next round and have them, so you have to be a little cautious.
Okay. And also, I was curious. I know you mentioned state bridge funding, and I know that there's also federal bridge funding out there. Didn't we use federal bridge funding for Alpine Drive at one point? Is there any other projects in our town that might be eligible for that kind of funding?
I think that's probably still through TIP money, though.
Is it?
I would have to look back. I haven't looked into a federal bridge program.
Okay. Because I don't think you were here at the time when
I
it
wasn't.
happened. I know it was before I was on the
before I
council.
was here.
So.
Okay, Councilor McKay.
Thanks.
Yes, through you, Madam Chair. Would it not be prudent to understand what we have once we work out our budget for next year, and then what we have, would we then look at the various options for, you said mill and overlay and complete reconstruction, and
Sure.
that's probably the way we'd probably have to go, no? Because
we can be cautiously optimistic and say that we're going to have additional funds left over at the end of the year that we could address and we could look at it at that time, yes. There does reach a point where it is not feasible. You can't take $50,000 and say, go fix a road. You kind of have to have enough money to make it worth the contractor's while and enough money to make it worth everyone's while. So there is a break limit point. We could do $50,000 worth of crack sealing, but you can't say do a quarter mile of a mill and overlay. They're not going to come do it.
Right, well, when you actually talk about contractors, could we not use our own DPW?
No, we don't have the technology to do anything of this size. We don't have a paver. We don't have the type of equipment. We don't have milling machines that can go mill a whole road. We don't have the crack sealing stuff. We don't have the fog sealing stuff. This is specialized equipment that if we purchased would be more than, and that we wouldn't have the staff to run it. Truthfully, what my staff is doing right now is the maximum my staff can actually handle. I can't say, oh, we're going to go pave this road tomorrow. When we pave a 50 by 100-foot patch, that's big.
Because this is such a tremendous project that's going to be undertaken, we're going to have to do something to do as much as we possibly can with the finances that we have.
I understand.
And we don't have to do what we'd like to do to certain roads. We may have to do a little bit less to make the money spread out more.
That also could be problematic because at some points the roads, you need to keep the roads passable, and we have done small patching projects in the past just to make Band-Aids on the road, but you don't want to put money to a road that you know you're going to go out and address in the future. If we can do the right technology at the right time, that's going to be the way to go.
So then what we might do, I'm not going to belay this, but what we might do is we might do the right thing for a few roads, and then the following year, we'll have to, at the next budget, we'll have to look at it at that time.
I can say you're absolutely correct, and I will always just take the money that's afforded to me by the council in any way, shape, or form I can get it. I understand
We're going to
that.
have to do something to get you that
But
money.
I will warn you that the path that we're projecting down means that our roads are going to get worse, not better.
No, that was only a question. It wasn't a direction.
Yeah.
We're not going to go that route then. Thank you.
Okay, let's keep moving along. Councillor Steves?
I've been thinking about something that's a very uncomfortable question, but I know I've seen other communities do it, not in our area. Have you ever looked at the idea of taking some roads and actually just turning them back to gravel or dirt? It's not something that anybody really wants to do, but I mean, it's like halfway. It would be like halfway, it'd be like a halfway project, get it flat and level and passable, and then just leave it there. And just flatten it out every once in a while.
Well, there's still a maintenance cost associated.
Oh, I know there is, and it's not something anybody really wants to do. But
I don't know that that's, long-term. Only certain locations and roads could even be done. They'd have to be rural roads. And truthfully, if you look at my list, there's not a lot of rural roads on that list that we're addressing. So I don't see where the savings are going to come from. You can't do it in your downtown core. You can't do it in your downtown collector roads or, little arterial roads. So I don't see a big savings there.
I'll make a comment now. There's something that I'd heard recently was a lot of communities are no longer accepting roads. You may have heard of this practice, perhaps, other areas in Massachusetts. Basically, if you start your subdivision, it's a shame we probably didn't think about this sooner, they form associations, and people who have homes on those roads, it's an association that takes care of the plowing and such.
And the paving and the rehab.
And these are in good communities and not so good communities. A lot of communities are no longer accepting public roads, the existing roads only, and therefore if a new division goes in, that's what you buy. You know what you've bought into because there's a homeowners fee, association fees, or that type of a situation that is then covers all those costs. And it's just, I don't know that it's viable for our community, but
I think
it is something.
That would be something in 20 years that you're going to see a lot of issues surrounding.
But it's
my last question through you,
yeah.
Madam Chair. Could we not look to have an adopt a street program in Southbridge? We could have, instead of Main Street, it could be Clements Avenue. We could have Gus Steves Boulevard, and in other words, if we could get companies, to join in with us on the roads, because it helps them too, it might not be such a bad thing to look into.
All right, we're going to close this discussion on that note, as is my prerogative right now. We're going to move forward because we appreciate your time this evening, but there's a lot of other items on the agenda and people waiting to speak. So thank you, and we look forward to periodic updates.
Thank you, Heather.
All right. Moving right along. Right now, the next under swearing in and presentations, it's listed as an overview of the open meeting law training update attended by the Vice Chair Steves and Councillor Nash on September 18th. And we did receive in our packets a wonderful collection of data provided from this meeting, a number of postings, public body checklists, and then the open meeting law presentation handout. Thank you very much. I would like to comment that online at the open meeting law website, it's great for anybody. It doesn't have to be a public body person or a committee member. There are training videos. There's a lot you can learn just by going to that website yourself. You guys were very excited about what you learned. So.
Well, if anybody, I also have one extra copy if anybody wants it, by the way. Also, so I just thought it'd be interesting to bring them up. I just thought I'd kind of summarize some of the stuff that's not here in the actual handout, the stuff that they talked about as opposed to put in print. Some of it may be buried in some of the details as well, but I just thought some of the stuff that kind of jumped out at me was the fact that they're going to be doing some serious changes to the way they're implementing open meeting laws. The law itself isn't changing, it's the regulations that the AG is using that's changing. And so one of the things that they're going to doing is they're proposing a requirement that anybody who's being appointed to a board for the first time has to start reviewing any decisions that may be against their board, which I thought was interesting.
They have to what?
They may have to start reviewing they would be required to review any decisions that have happened against their board. If you got appointed to, say, Conservation Commission or whatever. So that they understand it and they understand the consequences of violating the open meeting law. And those consequences are fairly general. I mean, generally speaking, they'll just, for the most part, if it's fairly simple, they'll just send you a letter. But they can fine you under some circumstances. They usually don't do it immediately unless it's really egregious. But that kind of ties in what they already do as far as open meeting law certification. We already get those things in our packets when we get elected or get appointed to those boards. So that's just a minor change. Also, I thought it was interesting that when they started talking about public bodies, and there's this kind of convoluted definition of what some public bodies are. So I'll just read it here. Any multi-member board, commission, committee or subcommittee, however created, elected, appointed, or otherwise constituted, established to serve a public purpose. And that means 2 or more people. So it kind of creates weird circumstances where you can have situations where 2 people are sitting there and they actually can't talk to each other in public because they are a quorum of the board. And that's one of the reasons why you will sometimes see communities where they have 3 boards with 3 members. They try to get them to 5 because they have those kinds of issues. But one of the interesting things that jumped out when they were talking about this particular section is that there's something called the Connolly exception, where a public official can create a group to advise that public official on a decision that he or she has sole responsibility for. Those groups are not open to public meeting law. However, only if it advises just one individual. If they're talking about things like, spending money, it's something that would ultimately have to be decided, say, by the council or some other board, then they have to be posted. Which is one of the things that came up. I thought that was interesting. So, for example, I know when I was thinking about this specifically, I was thinking about like the drug task force would have to be posted. The Latino committee has to be posted because they are in fact doing things that are suggesting potential changes to what the town may end up doing, ultimately. And they pointed out that everything that is going to have at least one exception. So if you have any questions, it's always best to contact the AG's office. So generally speaking, if something's created by government, it's almost always created for a public purpose in the AG's eyes. And the key is the groups that are not established with a jurisdiction to make decisions or recommendations collectively, such as a focus group. If there's no collective action involved, you don't have to post it. But these things, basically, they have some sort of collective action involved. So I thought that was important. Let's see here. Things like local town committees for political parties do not have to post. One of the concerns we talked about a few times, I know we've mentioned it a few times, is the idea that you have to be very careful about creating what are called serial quorums. Whereas you can't use email or other devices to have a discussion with other board members where, say, for example, I can't send Rick an email, then he sends it to Monique, then she sends it to Kristen, and then Kristen sends it to Mark. That creates a quorum. We can't do that. In fact, it's generally advised not to do any discussions on email if at all possible. Any oral or written communication through any medium, including electronic mail, between or among a quorum of a public body or any public business within its jurisdiction has to be posted in an open meeting. Yeah, go ahead.
Did they go over, like, the uses of your tablets or your cell phones, like at a meeting like this?
They didn't specifically mention it. There were a couple of questions regarding, for example, I remember somebody in the audience asked a question about communicating, say somebody up at the board communicating with somebody in the audience, and that's kind of a gray area. It's one of those things where if it's just something innocuous, that's one thing, but if it actually has anything to do with the discussion that's going on, it's basically public record. Mm-hmm. You shouldn't be doing that. And you definitely shouldn't be doing it among members on the board, period. That's a violation of the open meeting law. Do you remember anything about that particular issue?
That's what I recall.
Okay. One of the newest things about open meeting law about a year and a half ago was the discussion of the recess or continuance of a town meeting in the events of a weather-related or public safety emergency is something that's excluded. That doesn't really apply to us. However, you cannot, so if you're using email, to go back to that issue, you can distribute reports and documents, but you can't, provided there's no opinion expressed that may sway somebody else on the board as far as when the discussion actually does happen. Let's see here. And one of the things they pointed out, they talked at some length about site walks, which people like Conservation Commission, sometimes the Planning Board does it, it's primarily these two boards, where the issue there is that basically they recommend that you do it, basically just have two people, little subgroups that are what they call sub-quorums going to these things, or you have to post them. And then it gets into the issue of, is it publicly accessible? Is it handicap accessible? I mean, most of the places that a Concom would go to is not. So it's kind of a weird gray area. But they recommend that basically you should just have two people to do it and then have everybody go separately, and then you come back and talk about it, because you can't legally, without posting it, you cannot talk or ask questions to each other or the property owner or whoever's developing it or whatever, because technically that qualifies as deliberation, which is kind of a pain. But that's what the law says. So deliberating is everything you'd be doing on an outside inspection, is what what John Sklodzic said. So some of the things that are exempt from open meeting law, including on-site inspection, provided what I just said happens. Attendance by a quorum at an event provided there's no deliberation. Somebody who's coming to either a public event, another board's meeting, or something like that, they're sitting out on the audience. They can comment for themselves, provided they're not debating among themselves. That's okay. Meetings of a quasi-judicial board specifically for making a decision in an adjudicatory proceeding does not need to be, that's excluded as well. Let's see, anything else I need to say? And one of the things they pointed out, one of the things that they get the most complaints about is posting. It's specifically anything, the way they define it is that any of the topics that a chair reasonably anticipates up 48 hours before the meeting starts. And I've noticed that in many cases, you'll see boards will post it a week or sometimes even 2 weeks in advance and become these generic postings. Those need to be changed. They need to be as clear as possible, as close to the deadline as possible. So once you start knowing what's going on, and you've got it, say you started at 5 days, and then something comes in, you have to change it. If something comes up after the 48-hour notice, it's kind of a judgment call. I mean, they said you can legally discuss it under new business, provided it's something that's really an emergency, but they recommend putting it on a future agenda if it's not. So, yeah, go ahead.
Through you. I just want to elaborate on one point that I brought up to either committee or to the town manager in regard to open meeting law and agenda meeting notices. And there is a comment within this document on that same slide number 13. Topics should give enough specificity so that the public will understand what will be discussed.
Right.
Not all our boards and commissions do that. So
Some
please,
don't do it at all.
let's make them aware of that. I don't know what ANR is when I look at the planning board. Just an example. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Actually, I'll dovetail with what he just said a second ago. One of the elements that they did talk about at some length is posting for executive sessions, in which they pointed out that we would need to be a little more specific about what we post. Obviously, we don't want to get into a situation where we actually get into the nitty-gritty of what the discussion is going to be. But if, for example, we have something on the agenda that's executive session that's for an active lawsuit, say, for example, the landfill lawsuit, we need to list that it is for the landfill lawsuit or some other active lawsuit. On the other hand, if there's a circumstance where we are debating whether or not to actually start a lawsuit for some reason or other, we don't need to be that specific because it's not existing yet. We can go in and we can use that particular element of the open meeting law's exceptions, and we don't have to be that specific. It's a gray area. There's a lot of gray areas in open meeting laws, unfortunately. But they were recommending that we need to be as specific as possible, which, like, for example, when we're talking about union negotiations, we should specify which union we're talking about. If we're talking about non-union contracts, we should specify which employee we're talking about, those kinds of things. And they talked about posting. As far as posting goes, one of the things that they're looking at is changing the way things get posted so that the town can designate the municipal website as their official posting site. As of right now, we have the TAC board downstairs, and our website is kind of our alternative site. But legally, it still says that legally they have to be something that everybody has access to 24 hours a day. And so then if we decide to do municipal website, that would be something that we would vote on. And if we decide to do that, then there are some slight quirks in there where, for example, if the website fails after posting a meeting, there will be new regs coming out stating that there's a 6-hour window. If more than that passes, say the website is down and it comes back up a day or two later, then technically you're supposed to cancel the meeting and repost it. I'm not really sure. I didn't think to ask this question, but I'm not sure if that means that if it would still be valid. For example, if we were to post it today for a meeting next Monday and it crashes on Wednesday, because you still have 48 hours after that.
Right, so as long as it's posted 48 hours.
So I don't know if that we would have to cancel and repost under those circumstances. I didn't think to ask the question at the time. There's a lot of stuff on remote participation, which we don't do. Oh, and as far as public participation, I thought this was interesting. Obviously, the public can attend any open meeting. That's blatant law. And they have the right, ironically, that they have the absolute right to record audio or video of any open session. However, the way the law is written, there is no absolute right to address the public body in session. Most people do. They recommend it. Well, I think it's a good idea in general. But that is what the law says. And let's see. Is there anything you wanted to add?
I just want to make sure that we're all clear on this, not just for our benefit, because we do this in several committee meetings, seems like every week. Right. But there needs to be a declaration by anybody that is recording an open meeting through the chairman or chair lady of any particular meeting. I also would recommend, having witnessed other town council meetings in other communities, that we should announce right up front that we are recording this. I know that it has happened in the past, but what's more, a simple statement that under Chapter 38 of Mass General Law, Open Meeting Law, if someone wants to record, please make it known at the time of recording by getting the chair's attention. Thank you.
Right.
May I add to that, the chair does have discretion in terms of the placement and such, so as not to be disruptive. Mm-hmm. It's clearly outlined in open meeting law. Mm-hmm. Chair of any committee, I should say.
Right. Okay. Oh, and one of the other things I want to bring up is they talked about the complaint process. I mean, they went through a bunch of these open meeting of the executive session sections. The details are actually fairly straightforward. They're mostly in here. But one of the things that I mentioned about posting, about complaints, open meeting law complaints, one of the things that they will not review anonymous complaints. They have to be signed. And they are also considered to be public records. Other than that, nothing has changed as far as I understand it, as far as the complaint process. They have to be filed within 30 days of the alleged violation, and then if not reasonably known at the time, then within 30 days of the date the complainant reasonably could have known. Say, for example, if you're seeing executive session minutes that are being released a year later. They go to the chair of the public body, file with the municipal clerk. Let's see, the body has 14 business days in which to respond, and they can also request an extension from the director of the AG's the division in the AG's office for good cause if it's something necessary. And under certain circumstances, they can also go into executive session to discuss it if it's an issue. Let's see, they won't, as I said, they won't review anonymous complaints. And the new regulation coming forward probably in October says that the board can request mediation if there's 5 or more complaints versus the town or the board within 12 months from the same individual. I don't know if I think.
Did they say when the revisions, because you gave us a sheet on the proposed revisions that's dated June 21st, 2017. Right. Did they say when? Because under complaints, one of the things that I noticed that's not something that was done in the past is one proposed revision would require complainants to file their complaints only with the chair of the local public body, right, removing the requirement that they also file with the municipal clerk.
Yeah, they did mention that.
And they say that sometimes they're filed in the wrong place. It causes delay and prejudice to the parties. So they're trying to eliminate that, I guess.
Yeah, they did say that they were planning on having these things finalized either by like mid-October or maybe early November at the latest.
Councilor Nash?
Throw in one comment, please. Thank you, through you. Just a quick note, Madam Chair, that document to which you're referring was not provided at that seminar. This is something I provided through the Attorney General's website. Right. And if that wasn't included in the packet, I'm happy to give one to Max.
The 21st? It's online?
Yeah, you referred June 21st. Is that in our packet?
Yeah, it's.
Okay, because I had my own copy I was referring to.
It's part of the package that was given to us.
Okay, all right, very good. And can I just make one other statement to that end? That 4-page document dated June 21st references the opportunity to comment. Right. Comment period was closed in August, so yeah, that opportunity has passed. And I'll agree with Councilor Steves that Attorney Sklarczyk, I don't know how you say his name.
He's the assistant to the.
Yeah, really nice gentleman. Did mention that he did anticipate that these changes would be forthcoming very shortly. So, yep, thank you. That's all.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much all I had to say to you. So.
I would hope that we could get the public body checklist. That, as we said, there's a public body checklist for posting of meetings, one for the preliminary screening committee, one for creating and approving meeting minutes, and one for entering into executive session. That would be great if they could be posted on the website. I think that would help our boards, and certainly they should know to go at any time to the Mass Open Meeting Law website to get further.
It might be a good idea, Madam Chairman, to throw all those things in the packets that all new members of boards and commissions get as well, because there's I think there's a lot of a lack of information on how open meeting laws are supposed to run. Some people know them really well. Some people know them all, and it would be nice to have everybody more educated on these issues so that we're all kind of on the same page here. So.
Very good. Thank you, Councilor Mena.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd just like to thank Councilor Steves and Councilor Nash going to this and bringing us back that information. Some of it is new, and I greatly appreciate, that information, and thank you for sharing them with the public.
No problem.
I also note that we did get notice on the MMA meeting in January, and they have constant updates. One of the seminars, or at least one that's offered, are on open meeting laws, which I think I've attended something for 8 years. So certainly if you have that opportunity as a counselor to go and to participate in some of those topics, I would encourage that. Anybody else? All right, we're going to move on then. Citizens Forum. Agenda item number 8. This is your chance to come up and speak to the council on anything not on the agenda. We ask you state your name and address, and you will get 5 minutes to discuss with us. So if there's anybody who would like to address the council.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. My name is Bill Piappi, and I'm speaking on behalf of the St. John Paul II Food Pantry, which is located at 279 Hamilton Street in Southbridge, Mass. I'll be as brief as I possibly can, but for any of you that are not aware of the food pantry and its function, the pantry was begun in 1991 as a result of people actually coming to the rectory of St. Mary's Church at that time and asking for food products. It exponentially grew and grew and grew to the point that we now have a full food pantry, which is manned by 70-plus volunteers, of which I'm one of the many, who devote time every week, part of their day every week, to support the food pantry in one way or the other. The purpose of the food, it's a non-denominational food pantry, and its purpose is to try to alleviate hunger in the community. Last year, we actually gave out 50 tons of food to the hungry in our community. Last month alone, we had 1,100 clients that came in that we gave food to. Now, what we do is once the people are qualified to come in, we give them what is the equivalent of a week's worth of groceries at that time. In order to be able to do that, we have formed a partnership with the Worcester County Food Bank, which is located in Shrewsbury, Mass. Believe it or not, there are 110 different food pantries just in Massachusetts alone, Eastern Massachusetts, like us, that cater to giving food to the poor and to the hungry in our various communities. Besides the food that we get from them, we also are very, very reliant on other people in order to provide the food that is not available. So that we get a lot of help from Stop and Shop, Shaw's, Big Bunny, Core-Mark in Whitensville, BJ Wholesale, It's Stearns Meats. On a weekly basis, we can go to these stores and pick up from them food products which are on the verge of being outdated, which they freeze for us, but which are very, very able to be consumed with absolutely no harm, and we distribute these out. Besides that, we're also very, very reliant on donations from various organizations. I don't know if you've ever seen our St. John Paul II food truck that's around town. We were able to get that food truck from a very, very generous donation from Southbridge Savings Bank, which is now Cornerstone Bank in Southbridge. That truck goes into the food bank in Shrewsbury every Tuesday and brings back anywhere from 7,000 to 9,000 pounds of food. In addition to that, it goes down to Core-Mark in Whitensville and picks up whatever they can provide for us. It's usually gallons and gallons of milk and other products. What Core-Mark does is they stock places like Extra Marts and those types of places, and when they have food left over, they hold it and they deliver it to us. In addition to that, we have people that go to the different markets and pick up whatever they can at that time. So that in addition to the food products that we get, we're also very, very dependent on financial contributions that we get from various organizations. The Rotary Club of Sturbridge just held a dinner dance, and the proceeds of which they gave to us directly, they gave us a check for $3,000. That was Friday night. They held a golf tournament earlier that they gave us the money from. We have a lot of different organizations, the Southbridge organizations, and individuals that give us money step up to the plate to help us out. United Lens Company is a big benefactor of ours and very, very appreciative. So we have grants from different organizations along the way that help us to meet our budget as much as we can and keep on functioning. If you're ever interested in actually seeing the food pantry, just contact me or somebody call up the parish and they'll set up an appointment for you to come down and see it. I think you'd be very, very impressed. It's actually set up like a grocery store. We take the individuals through with shopping carts and we allot certain amounts of food to them based on the number of members that they have in each of their families, and then we escort them back out. So that there's a lot of work involved, and we got a lot of terrific volunteers that help us in this way. So tonight, my main purpose in being here is not to ask you for anything, but to invite you to something. On this Saturday, at the Pilsudski Polish American Citizens Club at 18 Ballard Court, there's going to be an Oktoberfest. And this is going to go on from 1 p.m. to 7 p.m. There's going to be polka country musicians all day long. It's going to be held rain or shine. There's going to be Polish and American food. There's going to be a lot of great fun. And there's even going to be a costume contest that if somebody wants to dress up for Oktoberfest type of thing, they're even going to have a $200 first prize and a $50 runner-up prize for that. And all the proceeds of that Oktoberfest are going to be given to the St. Paul II Food Pantry to help us with our budget. So I thank you for your time, and once again, I look forward to seeing all of you there to enjoy that Oktoberfest on Saturday. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak to you.
Thank
Any
you, Mr.
questions? Yes.
Go ahead, Councilman.
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you. I just want to thank you for making that public announcement to the public. No one should ever go hungry, and thank you very much for all you do.
You're welcome. You're entirely welcome. Does anybody else have any questions or comments?
Councilor
Yeah.
Steves.
Yeah, I was curious. I know I caught your first name. It's Bill. What was your last name again, first of all?
I'm sorry, I can't.
What was your last name? It is Piapi. Okay, okay. I didn't catch that. I was curious. Have you seen any trends as far as the need for food from your pantry lately in the last couple of years?
I'm sorry, I can't understand.
The trend.
Have you seen any trends in food need in the last couple of years?
The needs of food. Has it increased, decreased? What's the trend?
It's increased. That 1,100 people that we had last month, that broke the record for us.
Did it?
Unfortunately, the demand is growing and growing, and it's a nationwide thing that we're experiencing. That's the sad part of it. Our goal would be eventually not to be necessary anymore in the community, but unfortunately, the demand is increasing. I could sit here and tell you stories that you would be absolutely unbelievable in the stories that I could tell you of the things that are going on in our community. And a lot of these, are people that are working.
Yeah.
They just don't have enough income. One of the things that we found out was that early on we noticed that we were not getting senior citizens coming in. And we couldn't figure out why, so we began to probe, and we found out that they're reluctant to come in. So, and probing even more, we found out that some of these senior citizens are skipping on food in order to pay for medicine, or skipping on the medicine in order to pay for food. So on Wednesdays, twice a month, we bring our senior citizens in by appointment. We escort them in from the parking lot down to the food pantry, have somebody go through with them completely and take care of whatever their needs are, and escort them back out to their cars afterwards. We're now up to 165 seniors a month that come in just for us to supplement whatever that they can do. So the need is just there. It's just unbelievable. So whatever help we can get, we really, really appreciate. So we'll look forward to seeing you all there.
Thank you. Councilor Nash.
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you. Mr. Pioppi, did I see something either on the website or a posting where the food pantry is looking for additional volunteers for scheduling, delivery, things of that nature?
We're always looking. We're always looking for volunteers. Yes, absolutely.
Should they contact you, or is there a better
contact? They can contact me, or they can call up the parish center, and I should have a phone number here somewhere, so that they can just call up and they can put their name down, and then somebody will get back to them. If they call up, they can use the telephone number of 508-765-0245, and just leave it on the answering machine that they would like to volunteer, leave their name and their phone number, and somebody will get back to them. So thank you.
Thank you so very much. I'll echo the same sentiment as Councilor Manna. Thank you for the service that you and the team at the pantry provide to the community.
It's a pleasure. Thank you very much. Thanks for the time.
Good night. Is there anybody else who would like to address the council? Come on up and state your name and address, and you'll get 5 minutes.
My name is Pamela Paquin. I live at 16 Ellis Road in town. And I have a quick question about the last issue, which is that, is it legal, sir, is it legal for people who have laying hens that lay eggs to bring those eggs? I have some hens, and I'd love to donate eggs. We can't eat all of them. Can you accept those? Fantastic. Good to know. All right, thank you. So I thought I was just here to speak to you tonight about helping the town not to break the Wetlands Act law with the developments going through Gulfwood and Cedar Swamp. It turns out, given Heather's presentation on the roads, I think I might also be here on behalf of many taxpayers who live on roads where there are actually houses to take the funds that would otherwise be allocated to putting a road through a wetland and a FEMA floodplain and diverting that to roads where people actually live. So, let me start. And thank you for taking the time to listen to me. It's obviously very near and dear to my heart. My family's been on that road for a long time, generations. So, when you're talking about the Massachusetts Wetland Act, from what I can read in it, there are several things that you have to consider when you're a Conservation Commission making a decision about whether or not it is an immediate threat to human health and safety. There are 4 things, essentially. So, is there drinking water wells, public or private, that are threatened? And in this case, the answer is no. Are there public utilities that are being flooded or not on? And in this case, the answer is also no. The other question is, are there septic systems being flooded? The answer is no. Are there houses being flooded? The answer is no. Now, that takes me to the issue of whether or not this is an imminent emergency. And I would like to say that this road has been closed for 2 years, so this is not imminent. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I do not believe that anybody on the Denfield-Ellis extension ever said that they had an emergency and that their road was not suitable for emergency vehicles until this happened and they tried to reopen the swamp road. Nobody ever complained that they couldn't get service vehicles to their houses until it was tied to Gulfwood Road. So when you read the letter of appeal from the people who would like to see Gulfwood Road opened, they talk about a few things that what they think would constitute an emergency. One of them is speeding vehicles, and that it's dangerous for them, and I quote, to go to their mailboxes or walk their dogs. And the second thing is that, as I just said, the emergency vehicles can't get to their houses fast enough, and it would keep them from getting to the hospital in a timely fashion. So my question is to you, as the town council, to consider how, in one universe, in one plane of reality, can you have cars and trucks that go too fast and emergency vehicles that can't move fast enough? I don't know how that happens, but I don't think that constitutes an immediate threat to human health and safety. So the road, Gulfwood, is flooded. Nobody's driving on it. There is no threat for driving on that road in an unsafe way. So what we look at in the Wetlands Conservation Act is there a viable option? That's one thing that you must consider when you're on the Conservation Commission. And you look at Denfield and Ellis, and as I sent in my appeal letter, it's 0.06 miles longer to take the Denfield-Ellis detour. That's not even a tenth of a mile. So I want you to just keep that in mind. Secondly, the Charlton section of the road, they've done a brilliant job. It's 20 feet wide on average. It's definitely wide enough for a rural road. I like my neighbors on that side of Ellis. Obviously, I'm on the other side, and we won't even talk about the state of my road, but I'm all right with that because it keeps people going slow. I would love to see improvements if it helps them and it makes them feel better and that it's safe for passing. I know a neighbor of mine, had a brush with somebody else on his mirrors at a narrow point in the road. I'd love to see speed levels kept low, maybe speed bumps, weight limit restrictions, that sort of thing. This is a rural road. And I guess my question really, after hearing Heather's presentation, which was astounding, really, shocking and overwhelming, given the task ahead of you about how to appropriate funds in a reasonable manner, is why, given everything we've just heard from Heather, would we ever put money into a road that has no houses on it? That is through a FEMA floodplain that Charlton is not going to raise in their plans to appropriate Chapter 90 funds, that will continue to flood every time there's a storm. This is prime beaver habitat, and beavers will continue to come back, as I think it was Mike Callahan, the beaver specialist, outlined. All set?
I just need to know if we can give her 2 more minutes. Would you like 2 more minutes?
Yes, please.
All those in favor? You may continue.
Thank you. So I think really in closing, I just do not see the logic, which is why I've shown up again and again, written my DEP appeal, written to the town manager. I've been received very helpfully. I'm very grateful for the way that you've engaged with me as a concerned tax-paying citizen. But I would advocate that the town council take control of this situation and look at Massachusetts general law immediately, because there is a viable alternative in detour. And that road being used means that you don't have to dump half the budget of fiscal year 2019 into building a road that goes through a floodplain. That was half the budget that was designated for Gulfwood Road.
That's from Torrey Road, that section there.
Sure. Sure. So if you prioritize that road as a throughway and build it through the swamp, then obviously there's going to be more traffic and it will continue to be a priority. And it will continue to be going through a floodplain, which will continue to flood and cost money. So thank you.
Okay. Councilor McKenzie?
Madam Chair, through you, thank you for your presentation. I thought it was well prepared.
Thank you.
There were a lot of points that you made that I liked. The one question that I have is, are there absolutely no houses on that part of Gulfwood Road?
So from where the
In other words,
Southbridge line
would there
is?
be a separation? For example, I know that where it becomes, is it Dedham?
Denfield, yeah.
Oh, Denfield.
The detour house, the detour
right,
house
right where the
houses.
detour is. I know that there's a house right down that block.
Are you talking about the Denfield-Ellis
Yeah.
detour? There are
Yeah.
definitely houses on that. Yeah, I ride my
All right,
horses up there all the time.
So the limitation would actually be, it wouldn't be a pass-through, but if cars had to get into their homes, there would be an ending part of that Gulfwood Road. Is that correct? It'd have to be. It'd have to be like a dead end.
I think you're talking about two separate roads. Denfield-Ellis detour is not Gulfwood Road going through the swamp. So those are two separate roads.
No, where it would go straight through, once you get to Denfield, if you didn't make the turn onto Denfield, but you went straight,
Right, okay, I'm with you now.
okay, that's still Gulfwood Road, correct?
Yes, I think so.
All right, there are houses there. That would become a dead end where those houses end. Is that correct?
So between where the barriers lie, on the Southbridge side and the Charlton side, there are no houses. No, that's on Walker Road. That's Walker Road. Walker Road, it's a dirt road, and there are houses on that.
As long as there'd be no, I mean, I understand that it would not be a pass-through, but houses would be able to, they'd be able to get through to their homes.
Oh, yes, yeah, they can absolutely get through to their homes. There's no houses that are being blocked off currently.
Yeah, but it wouldn't be a straight drive-through.
I'm not following what you're
Okay, all
saying.
right, this is going to get long. Right now, currently, everyone can get to their home. They just can't get the connection in between.
Thank
They
you.
have to go around.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
Thank you for your
presentation.
Thank you.
for your presentation.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Did you have a question officially, Council?
I think we've
Yeah,
got,
1 second. Did
Is
you have
it
a
okay?
question officially, though?
Actually, I think my question is actually more directed at Heather, because I noticed in your presentation you have Ellis on the list. I'm assuming that's that stretch of Ellis going to Denfield, because that's the public side. What exactly, do you have an idea of what it is you were planning to do for that section at this point? Because I know that's one of the things that came up for example, some of the people living up there are concerned about it being narrow. And I remember somebody once, I was at the Conservation Commission meeting, and one of the people, I don't remember who it was, said that they didn't think it would be legal to widen that road, but I didn't understand why that would be.
We would never widen it to be extremely wide, but there are sections of that road that are barely 15 feet wide.
I know, it is narrow.
So we would do,
No question.
I mean, the right-of-way is wide enough. It would take some work to remove some ledge along the edge, probably straightening it out, smoothing it out. It needs to be basically full depth, most likely, or a wide overlay with some edging done.
Yeah.
I would say that the money that's put aside for Gulfwood is, there's two pots of money. The section from Gulfwood that would be the detour, no matter what we do, there's $100,000 worth of work that needs to be put in there to put a turnaround in if we're going to keep the road closed, or to put guardrails near the bottom, which is a very small portion of the money, and then redo that section of road. So that road's in deplorable shape. It basically
it is. It's terrible.
It's really, really bad.
Yeah.
And then the other part of Gulfwood Road is from Torrey, where the school goes up, to that detour, is also
It's deplorable. It's terrible.
it's in
absolutely.
really, really bad condition. So I understand, but they're to the point where they have to be addressed.
Yeah.
Okay, great. And we have something, come on up. Yep.
I just came up with something while I was drawing pictures of imagination. I was about to say that. If you like the pictures, you can do a check mark, and that's for more help to the beavers for a donation.
See what we can do about saving the beavers.
Yeah, and these guys are going to see if they like it. I've got a pen if no one has a pen.
We'll do that later. Thank you, guys.
All right, thank you. That's a future counselor there. Okay, is there anybody else who would like to address the council this evening? I'm not seeing anyone coming up. Then we're going to move forward with the agenda. Agenda item number 9, vote to amend Town Council meeting minutes of July 24th, 2017, previously adopted August 14th, 2017.
So moved.
Second.
Questions, concerns?
Well, that's one question. Is for the sake of Robert's rules, shouldn't we actually rescind the original vote first?
I asked on this matter
Okay.
with the Attorney General's office, and we can do it this way. Okay. We can rescind and do it the other way, but because we're amending our own minutes and stating that it was previously adopted, that we're amending something previously adopted, was completely legal.
Okay.
Okay. Councillor Eau Claire.
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you. Regarding your amendments, I guess I have a couple of questions. Really, the bulk of what's trying to be added is a transcript of only the town manager's comments at that meeting. I feel they are out of context when you're only including one person at a meeting's quotations. I think it's unnecessary because we do not need quotations in the official record. There are recordings, there are newspaper articles, there are all sorts of things. And I guess I'm wondering, what is the motivation behind this, and why on earth is it, are we targeting the town manager to only have his comments being written out verbatim in this meeting minutes? I guess I'm maybe confused on why this is even coming up.
I'll be happy to answer that to your liking, I hope. At our meeting on August 14th, when the minutes were read, Councillor Manner specifically stated, and I quote, and it comes directly from rewatching the meeting, "It should state clearly what the town manager said," end quote. And then she went on to make some comments of what she wanted, and we as a council sat up here and we said to the recording clerk, "Are you okay? Do you have all that?" So you're going to go back and look, she wants it to state what it said, what he said, and then this council voted unanimously to accept the amended minutes as such. So when the minutes, and there were 3 sets, came back to us, the minutes, and Councillor Manna, feel free after I speak to elaborate on that if you wish. Councillor Manna commented again that they were not what she asked, which was that she wanted it to be what the town manager said. It was important. And so then it became another set of minutes. And at that point, an actual transcript was taken from the video. We keep a video document here, as you know. I mean, we're being televised this evening, so anybody can look at that. And Councilor Manna then told me she wanted the section of the town manager's comments included. I did, again, research that. I did call the AG's office in terms of amending minutes and that type of thing. Council minutes are a record of what we do. You want something verbatim, we can add that in. If you want something that's clarified, that can be added in. It's your choice. It's any councilor's choice. These are our meeting minutes, and I really don't have much more to add to that. I just follow procedure, and I fully intended, and they are here to be voted on again.
Okay. In that meeting, I think it was the August 14th meeting when we adopted those meeting minutes, there were probably about 2 sentences that Councillor Manna stated and said that she wanted. It almost seemed like a little bit of clarification, but at no point in that meeting did she say that she wanted a full transcript of only one person, only one attendee at that meeting's. Go ahead, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. I did state that I felt it very important that exactly what the town manager said should be in the minutes. So I felt it was very important.
To have an entire transcript of only one member completely
I
out of
felt it
context.
very important to clearly state in our minutes what was stated by our town manager. Do I question you like that? If you feel something's important?
Okay, let's not debate back and forth on
I'm
that.
just asking because you're trying, you give me the impression that what I stated up here wasn't of any importance. And I feel it was very important to have exactly what the town manager stated put in the minutes.
This is my third year now on the council, and I've yet to ever see a counselor ask for a transcript to be added to the minutes. So perhaps I'm just wondering what the motivation there is, because it is unprecedented. Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I may, there's no motivation. I just want transparency. Not everybody has YouTube. Not everybody has cable, charter, spectrum, whatever you want to call it now. You know, so transparency, that's all. Thank you.
Okay, Councilor McKenzie was first.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. Was there a council meeting on August 5th?
A what?
August 5th?
No, there wasn't.
No, August 5th.
In other words, was there a meeting, a town council meeting before the 14th?
No, we had a meeting on July 24th. We
And then
had a
the next
meeting
one was?
on August 14th.
Okay, and at the August 14th meeting, the minutes, were they approved early on in the meeting?
That's what I said to you, is that they were approved with an amendment. Councilor Manna asked that they be amended to include the verbiage.
It was
I
done.
commented to the recording clerk, I said, you got all that, Max? And as has been our policy I would take it a lax policy these days, and that's why I stated what I did at the beginning, that we want to make sure if people do want amendments, they get done according to what the council's asked. And the recording clerk did a summary of what he felt, and there's nothing against that, but when a councilor has something specific they want, they have the right to put that in the council minutes.
So at the point where the minutes were up for approval, they were approved with an amendment. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, that's my question. Thank you very much.
Okay, Councilor Steves.
I just wanted to say, I actually agree with both Councilor Manning and Councilor Clare on this one. This may sound odd, but because, you know, I don't have a problem with Councilor Manna wanting to get text into the minutes, but I also think that the original section that's being struck out pretty much did summarize what the discussion was. So I'm kind of neutral on this one.
Okay, and then I'll just point out that I had recommended the other red changes because some of that wasn't quite accurate in terms of my statements on page 11, or Councilor Carrasco's statements, and then my response, because his comment was there was a call from Boston, not a meeting in Boston. He had noted my involvement, and then I commented about breakfast with Senator Fatman at the airport. So those are the comments that I felt were more relevant in that paragraph. And I think just, was it Councilor Nash that pointed out the he? No, Councilor Steves pointed out the he on the back page. That's all. So all we're doing here tonight is voting to accept whether these minutes are accurate or not. So this is a council item. So we have a motion and a second. Councilor Nash?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, I think that kind of in the middle on this one too, but the biggest problem that I see with the proposed amendments are the lengthy quotes. That is very atypical from anything that I've seen either online or from any committee that I've been on in the many years I've tried to volunteer within our community. So I would go back and just ask if there's a reason that we need to change the summation, which seems to have been perfectly adequate. This lengthy section in red while it is quote-unquote transcribed from Town Council Meeting 7/25/17 video, that's a little unusual for me. It's my observation that I haven't seen that before in any set of minutes. So I have a little bit of an issue with a long quote here and no quotes anywhere else in any minutes that I can recall. I'm perfectly fine with the changes on page 11. Frankly, I like the extra bit of information that was included there, but page 9 on to page 10 is just a little bit overkill. Thank you.
Councilor Steves.
Just as far as like, the idea of quoting, I know that when I do subcommittee minutes, I usually have direct quotes in my minutes, but they're not nearly this long. So.
I might just say that I've watched that video a number of times. The actual conversation was about 2 pages.
Yeah.
This was just one section that Councilor Manna asked for.
Yeah.
So that comment by the manager was about 2 pages. Councilor Nash?
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you. One more quick comment. And I don't think I'd see a problem if this were abbreviated. I know there are 1 or 2 statements in there, should the council agree to approve minutes, that would carry over the message that was conveyed through the summary there. While I'm not exactly in favor of that myself, I think it would be much more easy to swallow to condense this and move it forward. Thank you.
Well, Councilor Manna, this is your amendment, so that's your option as to what you want to do with this. Is there something you want to take out or leave in? I mean, it's a verbatim statement. I'm a little confused with the, because I reviewed it just to make sure.
I say we don't take a vote on it, and I'll send the changes, if any. This is just dragged on way too long. We're at the end of September, for crying out loud. What is in here is what I actually wanted. We need to have, it was very important, okay? So in here, you haven't seen the minutes that I've taken for work or anything before, because most of it is verbatim. And, but I mean, it's gone on way too long. It's just gone on way, way too long. There are more important things tonight on this agenda to be discussing than this. So I will clearly read these over within the next 2 weeks. I will send over the changes, if any, and then we can vote on them again in October.
I guess I would have to ask the councilors,
Or I'll just abstain.
Excuse me, Councilman. I would just have to ask those who are concerned. Are you concerned because you don't believe the accuracy of the comment? Because if they're accurate, I don't understand the concern. Councilor King?
Because I'll answer.
Sure.
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you. So as I stated, you're taking verbatim quotes out of context. I said very important things. You said very important things. Councilor Manna said very important things at that meeting. It doesn't sit well with me, and it doesn't make sense that we would have just single out one attendee at that meeting and have every word that they stated verbatim into the minutes when that's not required for meeting minutes, and it's not what we've ever done in the past, ever. It makes no sense. It's unnecessary. And I'm actually 100% right with Councilor Mann on this. I'm not sure why this is coming back. We've already accepted these minutes. They were amended as such with a more comprehensive synopsis by our recording clerk, and that wasn't good enough. So now we're coming back again to council for something that happened on July 24th, accepted August 14th, and it's completely ridiculous, and I would like us to just move on at this point. Thank you.
Councilman, do you want to reiterate why you asked to have more information? Because apparently it's not, I'm just doing what I was asked to do as the chair.
I can ask, thank you, I can ask for things to be amended because it was not stated in the original minutes what I stated. I asked that the minutes reflect what the town manager said. I felt it was very important. If you felt that you had something, or you had something, you had something, you had something that should have been in these minutes that you felt was very important, then you should have said so at that time, or maybe you should say so now, and have them input it in the minutes. There is nothing wrong with these minutes. There's nothing that's taken out of context in these minutes.
That's true.
There's no, it's all truth. It's all truth. So what is the problem? I'm not out to get anybody, but for transparency, I felt they were very important to be in these minutes. I'm one of 9, though, so.
Okay. Is there anybody else on council?
I had my hand up. Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you. Just very quickly, I'm with Councilor Leclerc on this one. It's time to move on. This was July 24th. This keeps surfacing. It's the root of the issue that is really bothering me, and I care not to dredge it up. But when you read the quotes that are within these revised or proposed minutes, I'll just say that I've seen the video several times myself. There was a lot of emotion on this dais, and I would say that while it's easy to sit here and quote what the town manager had said, he had reason to be impassioned based on the agenda item that was before us and the conversation that we had. So there, that's how I feel. I think it's time to move on. I'd appreciate if maybe we can find a way to tweak this if it wants to come back up, if it's going to be surfacing once again. But otherwise, let's get rid of the motion in a second and bring it back. Thank you.
I'll withdraw my second.
Thank you.
All right, we'll adjust these minutes at the next meeting. For the last time, I hope.
Can anybody else speak on it?
No, I think we're going to move on this one.
I'm sorry?
I think there's no more motion on the table, so the discussion's over. We're going to move to the next agenda item.
I would still like to say something. I was involved in a conversation.
But
also.
they took the motion off, so we're no longer.
While I stood, the manager had his hand up and I had my hand up, and you can just move on.
I can just move on.
Okay, well, I just want to show everybody that we don't get a voice here, and we've never had a voice.
You're out of order. Sorry, Mr. Sotos. You need to move on so we can continue with the agenda.
Okay, well, I still have a voice.
All right.
I'll go on Main Street and say all day long.
Agenda item number 10, vote to confirm the appointment of Michael Marchetti of Southbridge as citizen member to the Planning and Development Subcommittee for a one-year term effective immediately through July 31st, 2018, or until a new member is appointed.
So move.
Second. Any discussion on this appointment? Seeing none, all in favor? It's unanimous. Motion passes.
I didn't vote yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I missed that hand. I do apologize. It was my... all those against? Motion still passes, 1 against. Thank you. Moving on to Agenda 11, vote to confirm the manager's recommendation to appoint Patricia Sharon of Southbridge to the Southbridge Trails Committee for a 2-year term effective immediately through June 30th, 2019 to fill a vacancy due to the member resignation.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion on this appointment? All those in favor? Unanimous, motion passes. Agenda item number 12, vote to accept Chapter 90 local transportation aid funding for FY 2018 pending final passage of the bond authorization in the appointment amount of $488,267.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Just clarification, I think that bond authorization, I don't know why that phrase is in there, because when we were discussing it, the bond authorization has passed, so this is just a formal grant approval at this point.
Right. Anybody else? All those in favor? It's unanimous, motion passes. 13, vote to ratify the agreement between the Town of Southbridge and D.I. Jacobs Consulting Company to perform work required to complete a facility management study to review the possible combining of the School Facilities Department and the Department of Public Works at a fee not to exceed $30,000. So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Councilor Steves?
I don't really have a problem with that. I was just curious, would it be at all possible to do something like this in-house? I was just curious, was it even considered to do something like this in-house? Just by simply having like Heather and Mike Como talk about it?
No, we just don't have the resources and time. This is a very complex project, and I don't have the capacity, Heather didn't have the capacity, the school system didn't have the capacity. That's why we decided to go outside.
Yeah.
And thank God we had state grant money we could use so that we didn't have to use any local funds for it.
Okay.
And Councilor Manna?
Thank you, Madam Chair, for you. to Ms. Blakely. After this study's done, and if this passes, this, will this take the building down in Globe Village, the fire station? Is the school utilizing that? Will that combine
That will
it?
be part of the study of what to do with combining the facilities, looking at all aspects, including facility space, what's needed in facilities, manpower, looking at the union contracts, looking at what the hierarchy would be, looking at just in general whether it's going to save us money, whether it's a good idea, whether we need to keep them separate. It's an all-encompassing overview of both departments and whether they should combine.
Thank you.
Right.
Councilor Steves?
Will this also include the whole deed issue surrounding that building that we've talked about sporadically?
I don't know that they're going to do a needs review,
Yeah, I know, I saw that.
particularly of that building, but, you know, it will be they're looking at the whole departments as a whole.
Right.
So if there's specific needs for that building or specific needs for the school department as far as square footage or as far as us, that would be part of the discussion. They're really going to come to us and look at all the information.
That's why I was asking.
That we have to give them, pull it all together in an independent view, and basically give us either their recommendations of how to go forward, or say, you know, you need to do this, but you should maybe address X, Y, and Z here and there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Councilor DePietro.
Madam Chair, would you have an objection to the town managers, just very briefly, for those who weren't at that subcommittee meeting,
You want an overview?
I'm sorry?
Do you want an overview of what was discussed?
Just briefly, Ron said he certainly picked these folks out of the bunch for several reasons, and perhaps you could share that with some of us that weren't at that meeting.
You want to talk about what they're offering?
Thank you. First of all, we use a procurement process under 30B. In this instance, because it was under $50,000 and it was a particular consultant city, we didn't have to, but we wanted to do an extensive review of companies who did this work outside, and we got quotes from 3 different companies. This was the lowest quote that we have. We had gotten another one that was $1,000 more from a company who did no business in Massachusetts whatsoever. Was actually mostly in the Midwest and some that work in Florida, but nothing in Massachusetts. And then the third bidder was just extraordinarily high. This particular company has done a lot of work here in Massachusetts, very familiar with the different form of governments throughout different towns, understood the project very well. We did a thorough review, brought them in for an interview, discussed what we wanted and when we wanted it, the timing as well. We were very pleased with the responses we had, and that was done through myself, the DPW director, and the school, I'm sorry, not the school receiver, but Ventura, one of the leaders of the administration over there. We reviewed the documents, and we all agreed that this was the best vendor and that they would be able to do the scope of services within the time that we wanted it done.
Councilor McKenzie?
Yes, Madam Chair. This $30,000 is not, I'm assuming, is not a part of our established budget. So where is this $30,000 going to be coming from?
Thank you, Councilor. This money was through the governor's compact grant that he has. This is the 3rd grant that we're receiving through that state compact, so it's not local funds. It is all state money that we applied for and that we're utilizing for this particular project.
Thank you.
All right, anybody else? All those in favor? Motion passes, it's unanimous. Agenda item 14, vote to approve parking permit P-00151 for, quote, no parking zone on both sides of Moore Street from East Main Street to Overland Street, and, quote, no parking zone on the west side of Moore Street from Overland Street to Cisco Street.
So moved. Second.
Okay, discussion on this? We had a lot of discussion, subcommittee. Councilor Nash?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, just really quickly, I'm not going to make this a long one, but I seem to recall from the DPW subcommittee meeting that there had been either public hearing or discussion at the Traffic Commission meeting about this particular no parking zone, and I think also for the one that's upcoming. I just want to make sure everyone's aware that there was plenty of opportunity to discuss this if there's ever any objection. Thank you.
Councilor Manna?
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you. And just to go off of Councilor Nash, I was in touch with the police chief in regards to this, and he said that both of these had the full support of the Traffic Commission.
And I'm just curious, I noticed that Councilor, let's see. Do you want to, Councilor DePietro, do you want to read your minutes on that item?
In full, Madam Chair? Or?
Just the section, agenda item number 5. I don't know if you, because that's, you weren't here earlier, so you have, it's second page from the back. No, it's the third, let's see. Second last page, is that on that one?
This would be our agenda item number 5 from subcommittee?
That's the Mill Street. Did you see the other? Oh, it's Maple. I thought this one was in there. Yeah. Number 4. It's the third page from the back. It's agenda item number 4. Back here, if you go from the back side, it's the third page. Discuss parking permit. Agenda item 4.
That's the next one.
Yeah. It's agenda item 4.
It is 4, all right.
The public knows what was discussed.
We certainly don't need to read the agenda item again, do we, Madam Chair? Or?
No, you can just read the Heather explained part.
Well, it's, essentially, Heather was kind enough to give us a little bit of an overview of the benefits of changing this. It was, as she described to us exactly, it's taking 2 existing permits and kind of cleaning up the language for both. This was recommended by the Traffic Commission and would certainly further improve traffic flow according to Heather and their studies. Several councilors asked for further explanation as to the exact changes that would occur. Heather referred us to the maps that were provided, which I'm sure we all had in our packets. Mr. Lazo commented that would be an extreme benefit, especially regarding Sunday church parking, which if anyone's tried to navigate that street with parking on both sides, you can just about get a motorcycle through, and I agree with them. And certainly during snow emergencies, I mean, it's just impassable.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yep. Okay, any questions? All those in favor? Motion passes, it's unanimous. Agenda item number 15, vote to approve the parking permit P-00152 for a, quote, 2-hour parking, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., Monday through Friday, end quote, restriction on the east side of Mill Street, starting at a point 120 feet plus or minus north of Canal Street, thence northerly 60 feet plus or minus. Questions on this area? And if you want, you can read that section as well.
Again, Madam Chair, Heather enlightened us as to the need for this change in parking. The 2-hour restriction, as she explained, does not take away or add no parking spaces that currently exist. The reason for this change would be to allow new businesses to have parking for their customers and discourage long-term parking that would take away from them being able to get folks coming to their store. Councilor Nash asked if there was funding available for new signage. Heather responded that the cost would be minuscule, and she certainly had it in her budget. Councilor Steve asked why this restriction didn't encompass both sides of the street. And Heather responded that the intent was to, again, allow all-day parking for the employees of these businesses further down, and again, to discourage all-day parking for folks that might frequent their establishment.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? All those in favor? It's unanimous, motion passes. Agenda item number 16, vote to ratify FY 2018 Town Manager's Goals and Objectives document as recommended at the Council of the Whole meeting September 11th, 2017.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, now you all should have received on September 16th an email that I wrote with the amended Documents as per directive of the Council of the Whole meeting September 11th, attached is the amended version, and I'd highlighted the agreed to changes. Review it. If there was any discrepancies from what was discussed to what was amended, let me know so I could change it before. The intent was to add it to the next meeting agenda for a vote. That was sent to you, councilors, on September 16th. Our meeting was September 11th. It was the third meeting in a series on the council goals and objectives for the town manager. And so we have a one-page document here, both sides. There are approximately, there are 11 goals. They come under fiscal management, public safety, infrastructure, economic development, professional management and communication, and legal issues. And now I open it up to comment from council or Councilor Nash.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, I think I'll echo something that you had already said repeatedly during the Council of the Whole meetings and otherwise, that this was a collaborative effort. A lot of time went into it. I'm glad that we've finally brought it to Council. I don't think there are any surprises within this document. In my humble opinion, it is a consolidated version of several things that you have seen as council or town manager goals and objectives in the past, but there was a little more focus in a couple of areas. So I'm quite pleased with this. I appreciate being involved and having the input that we did get from several councilors to assemble this. And thank you very much for keeping it one page both sides for 11 items versus the 16 to 20 something that we've seen in years past. Again, I'll echo, and I like that word tonight, these seem very focused. They seem fairly attainable in a lot of areas. But what's more, I like the fact that we did come up with some timelines or expectations to tweak them even further. So thank you very much for that, Madam Chair.
Any other comments from the councilors? And I would just like to comment to you, Councilor Nash. I've said it before. I thank you very much for your input. You were quite vocal in this process. Councilor Steves and all those who attended the meetings that we had. They were mostly, I think, pretty much all very productive. And I was surprised on the 11th to get to where we got without having to have a meeting on the 13th. So I do appreciate that. We have lots of meetings. So the town manager.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Frankly, I had sent a memo or a note to everybody to ask for a postponement because Councilor DePietro had asked me to review these goals and objectives and to respond to them. Frankly, and looking at them again tonight as we're sitting here, and the last couple of days have been rather busy for me, so I haven't got to this. And looking at them tonight, I don't have any real major concerns with these goals and objectives. So if I'm okay with them going forward, I don't really see any major problem that concerns me, Councilor. I know you asked for my opinion. If you're okay, I guess for the most part, I'd say that I'm okay with these goals and objectives.
I'm glad to hear that. I do know, I just wanted to correct something. We did send, I was approached with that agenda that you had reviewed on Wednesday from the administrative secretary, Ms. Tortoise, and I noticed right away that these weren't on from our meeting. Right. So that's when I questioned her, was on Wednesday, and I sent it back to her. I was out of the country, but got it back to her, and then we went back and forth on the last items that were put on at the end. So I was hoping everyone had enough time to really review and get back info, and I didn't really hear very much back. So. Yeah. Councilor Steves, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just glad to see that we're actually getting this done because I think last year we didn't get anything done until like November. December even. And hopefully next year we won't even wait this long. So.
Maybe August.
Yeah.
I won't be here. Good luck. Councilor Nash.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you once again. I apologize. I know sometimes I'm a little bit wordy, but for those in the community that haven't seen these goals and objectives, once they are approved, I'm more than happy to post them to Facebook tonight because I know a lot of folks are asking.
On the website.
And perhaps they'll get on the website pretty soon.
Yeah.
I also just want to make a statement, too, that I have repeatedly brought up to this council that the council ought to have its own set of goals and objectives in the spirit of cooperation with the town manager to achieve and attain what we have challenged him to accomplish. I believe wholeheartedly that at least most of these goals, if not all of them, are in the best interest of the community. And that's what drives me on this. We have a lot of challenges and hurdles. We love to talk about them, but we need to see progress. And I think this kind of sets the tone to bring us forward. And I certainly hope that we can attack my suggestion of a council goals document in general government or in some subcommittee at some stage. I think it bodes well for all of us to hopefully bring a little more unification. Thank you.
Just to address that, I mean, we can certainly do more council of the wholes as we've been doing with that particular topic, and we've already got a good start, I think, or just somewhat of a start. Keep working on it for us.
I was just going to say I can throw that in Gen Gov for the next meeting if anybody's interested.
Thank you.
Just for clarification purposes, because of the issues that happened kind of in the last year's goals and objectives, my start date is August 19th. So can I assume that it's going to be a year based upon my August 19th date, not like this time we moved it up to July?
Yeah.
And I understand the issue. So these goals and objectives are I'm okay with from when we started to August 19th, but I just don't want it cut short to July again, and that seemed kind of unfair to me. So if we can agree today that I have until August 19th to accomplish these goals and objectives, that would be appreciated.
It's a one-year review situation, and it's up to the council to be prudent and get moving on it. Certainly, it doesn't hurt to have discussion in between to make sure the process is moving along, and then the manager will know what we feel is lacking by then. So,
that's why we put some of these deadlines in here specifically, right, so we'll have a better view of what's happening.
Correct. Okay. Anybody else? Any comments? Seeing none. Did you have your hand up, Councilor Leclerc?
No, I did not.
Okay. Anybody else? All right. Why don't we do this by roll call, since it's fairly official.
Councilor DePietro?
Yes.
Councilor McKenzie?
Yes.
Councilor Manna?
Yes.
Councilor Nash?
Yes.
Councilor Steves?
Yes.
Councilor O'Clair?
Yes.
Councilor Clements?
Yes.
7 yes.
Motion passes. Okay, and if you could just make sure they get that up on the town site, that would be good, I think. And if we could get the goals and objectives up on the town site along with some of the other items that we've mentioned, the open meeting law items. And thank you, Councilor Nash, for putting it out there also.
Thank you.
Okay. Councilors Forum, we will start with Councilor Clare on the left.
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you. I guess I'm wondering again, do we have any news on the 1 through 11 Central Street project or anything?
Oh, good question.
The 1 through 11 Central Street, the same question I asked last week.
Hunter's property?
Yeah.
Okay. So, through you, Madam Chairman, I don't think a lot has changed on that property. The town building director of inspectional services has been working to get the roof sealed. That was the big issue. It has not been done as of a week ago when the last time I talked to our director. He has worked through receivership. He is now sending all the notices required that he's not meeting the requirements of the code. I don't know yet that he's established fines for it yet, but he's in that process of following the law to do whatever he has to do to force him to live up to his contract. We get a lot of, no other way to say it, lip service. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, and then it never gets done. So I'd be happy to once again talk with Mr. Pelletier tomorrow and see exactly where in the status he is. But I know he's heavily involved in it. I just can't tell you off the top of my head exactly where it is at this point in time.
Okay. That, and there's also it's been brought up on social media several times, the property behind Lucy's, the old Lucy's laundromat. The old Lucy's laundromat down in, like, near the flats. There's...
Mechanic Street?
Yeah, but it's behind Mechanic Street. I want to say it's Rose Street. What is it? 9 Rose Street, that's what it is. It's a building that had a fire a while ago, and the front and the back are filled with trash, and there's all sorts of pictures and everything about it. So is that something that we're aware of?
Yeah, we're very aware of this issue. As a matter of fact, and this gets into a problem that I've been talking a lot about, where this gentleman, the gentleman who owned that building, collected his insurance funds for the fire. Then proceeded to sell the building for $1 or some minimal amount to someone else. Our director of inspection services has been sending him all kinds of certified letters and everything to reach out to him to see what he's going to do with this building, because it needs to be ripped down, and is not getting responses for it. This goes to that I don't know, I want to call it a quirk in the law or just horrendous fact that people are allowed to do this. They should not be allowed to transfer property to some other nefarious person or group. And that person, we have no ability to go after resources because they have none. I think it's a rotten part of state law that allows this. I think it needs to be changed. I've had discussions with our state representative about that issue. But that is the situation, again, at that street. And it's sad because I had discussed when this fire occurred, literally the day of the fire, I was at the scene and the owner of that building was there, and he told me how he immediately actually responded to board it up and do other things he had to at that time. He promised me he was going to rip down the building and do other stuff, and of course, promises made, never delivered on. So again, Andy's trying to use the court system. He's actually going to take the new owner to court. And as a matter of fact, the court date was this morning. And the gentleman had health conditions all of a sudden and could not attend the court hearing. So Andy was somewhat frustrated because it was going to be postponed again. And I guess it's up to the court as to when that's going to occur again. So I'm kind of thinking about it as we're talking. So it was literally one of the things that I remember kind of somewhat aggravated Andy this morning because he was literally going to court today and it you know, health conditions caused it not to occur.
And as far as the trash and everything around the property, is there something that he can do as far as the blight bylaw to begin at least addressing that and in either getting some cleanup or some fines or something?
So under the blight bylaw, we can send notices and get to a point where we can actually do it ourselves. And then at some point, if he doesn't respond, the town could actually take action to clean it up and put that as a lien against the property. Now, truthfully, a lien against that property is worth zero because the property is worth zero. My fear on that property, such as it is on other properties, is that the town will actually have to take it, rip it down itself through the process we've been using, and of course it will cost taxpayers money again. That's why I hate, again, that section of law, because it doesn't hold people accountable and actually allows this loophole to get people who should be accountable to get out of being accountable. So it's a real problem, and it's a problem throughout town. I've discussed it with people again, but they have not changed that law, and it's a real problem, including the issue as it revolves around banks too, because banks are doing the same thing, you know. They won't foreclose on properties, and we can't do anything about it, you know.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
All set? All right, we'll go to Councilor DePietro.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Regarding the performance of Mr. Zotos tonight, it was disrespectful to the chair and certainly to council. And should be warned that disrupting a public meeting in that manner is actually illegal. And if in the future council needs to have a uniform officer here to keep this under control, we can certainly make that happen.
Thank you. Councilor McKenzie. Are you all set, Councilor DePietro?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. Councilor McKenzie.
I have nothing tonight. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councilor Manna.
I'm speechless once again. Thank you.
Councilor Nash.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, Councilor Mann, I'm happy to share my full page of notes then. Two quick things. I don't want to beat a dead horse because the audience and people that actually watch from home or on YouTube understand that sometimes sitting up here as councilors, it's extremely difficult to hear one another. I sit next to Councilor Steves, can't hear him half the time. It's not his fault. The dynamics up here are very, very crazy. So the reason I bring this up tonight is just to reiterate and repeat what's already been said, but also if I was out of order by approaching Councilor DePietro, I suspected he couldn't hear the chair, and quite frankly, I didn't mean to disrupt. Second of all, just on a quick note, I would remind folks that are trying to contact me by email, please don't use my personal email address that you may have had in the past. I have a council email address that is a Gmail type. It's ricknashsb@gmail.com, and it's on the town website. I have gotten emails from the citizenry concerning town topics, and so that I'm not ever compromised, I prefer to keep everything as organized as I can. Please bear that in mind. If you need to update contacts for any of the councilors, we're all on the town website. Thank you so much. That's all I have tonight, ma'am.
Thank you. Vice Chair Steves.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I have a couple of quick points. One is that I just wanted one is specifically, I guess, either to Ron or to Heather. Actually, one I guess for Heather, one is for Ron. One is that Heather, do you have any update on what's going on with the Route 131 bridge project? That's been in limbo basically forever. I asked about it last time and didn't really know
I
what's
don't
going
have
on.
an update directly from the state, but I know, I have a hunch of what's holding it up. The utilities on the telephone poles haven't been completely relocated yet, and until that is done, there's new poles that have been installed. If you look, there's double poles out there, and until that is done, they can't do the expansion of the bridge work. Part of their work, at least. I will attempt to find some follow-up from the state. We don't really have a day-to-day contact with them on that, but I can attempt to find. But I can tell you that part of it is definitely utilities haven't been relocated, being on the telephone poles.
Okay, speaking of utilities, there are pipes and stuff underneath that will also be replaced?
Correct. They're upgrading some of the water lines as part of the project also, so that would still have to happen. That hasn't happened yet.
Okay.
I mean, that was still scheduled to be completed through this fall-winter period. I haven't heard anything if there's something else holding them up, but I will look into it for you.
Okay, because it doesn't seem like anything's happening, so. But
I can tell you there was work being done on the utilities out there, being the aerial utilities, and they haven't all been relocated.
Okay, thank you. And the other question I had is, has there been any progress on seeking some of the grant funding via the community compact stuff that we were talking about? I think it was the last meeting that Councilor Cummins brought up about that new element of the community compact.
So Heather's answer is no. She's been looking at not as of yet. So that particular item, as it relates to roads and stuff, not as of yet. So we are still looking at it.
Okay. And the other thing I wanted to ask about, I actually don't want to ask about, I just want to point out something that this month actually is considered to be Community Emergency Preparedness Month. So I just thought I'd mention that there's, I don't think we actually have one of these guys, but I actually have one of Oxford's emergency preparedness handbooks, and they've got a bunch of different things in here that maybe we should be thinking about putting together. But just for those of you who are concerned, there's all kinds of weird things going on in the world right now. So it might not be a bad idea. They recommend, among other things, to have a 72-hour kit on hand, which is a 72-hour supply of food and water, warmth and shelter, personal sanitation materials, light sources like candles and flashlights, some basic everyday tools, some sort of communications like a radio with batteries or wind-up radio or something to that effect, a small amount of cash on hand, and a few other basic things, basic first aid kits, some basic extra clothing, copies of important documents, canned goods, and other non-perishable foods that don't need cooking in case you don't have power, stress relievers for games and books and hard candy and stuff for the kids, a variety of additional basic items like camp stoves and insect repellents, depending on the season, and that kind of stuff. And of course, if you have pets, make sure you also have pet food, because that's often forgotten. So I just thought I'd mention that. And I think I guess the only other thing I had to mention is that the next council meeting is going to be, if I can find my agenda here, Monday, October 16th at 7 here in the chambers.
There's a couple of things that, Ms. First, if you want to respond to the sound system?
First of all, thank you. A question that Councilor Nash had brought up about the sound system. It's an issue because quite frankly, I agree with you. I have a very difficult time hearing the members of the council speak, and I'm always find myself missing words, and it's very difficult. So I totally agree with you. We have brought in a company a number of times to look at the system and to try to improve it, and they make minor improvements, but not enough to really make it significantly work better. Jim, I've asked our public access director to answer the question. He's got somebody else coming in, so if Jim would come up to the mic and express what's happening and what the status is in terms of improving the audio system.
Yeah, we have another company that's coming in the end of October, and they're going to look into it. They have a plan to add some more speakers in here, and it should help quite a bit. They're going to add a few more speakers on the side, aiming toward you and the audience and in the back. So.
And Jim, what's the date on that meeting coming in?
I believe it's October 25th and 26th.
Okay, and when they come in, are they expecting to actually do work? I know you guys have money within your budget to do work, so
yeah, they're going to come in and do the work.
They're going to come in and actually try to improve the system?
Yep, they're going to start working, hit the ground running.
Okay, very good. And there was one other announcement that got omitted, and that is from our water company. Whitewater has sent us an announcement on the upcoming fall hydrant flushing. The hydrant flush, Southbridge Charlton, Southbridge Water Department will start its fall segment of our semi-annual hydrant flushing program on Monday, September 25th, so that's today, at approximately 9 p.m. So it has started, and continue during the overnight hours for approximately 6 to 8 weeks between the hours of 9 p.m. and 5 a.m. Flushing will start in the Westfield Dam area and continue easterly throughout the town. The procedure will include the cleaning of the reservoir intake screens, flushing accumulated sediments from the water mains, and testing the operation of each hydrant. The department requests that during this period, customers check their water before washing clothes. Customers may also get accumulated sediments in their house laterals and experience some discolored water. This will clear after a brief run of water at the tap. Please contact the Southbridge Water Department at 508-764-3207 if you have any questions or comments. They would also like us to point out that our reservoir levels are currently at 93% of capacity. Very good news. That's about 10% higher than normal for this time of year, so we're in great shape for water storage. If you recall, we did have a water ban at one time, so this is very good news. And the only other thing that I would like to note is, September 27th, the Southbridge Business Partnership, that is that new business partnership that reformed last year, will be having a monthly meeting over at Harrington Hospital. It's going to be hosted by the hospital. They'll be presenting their hospital's Power of One program. There'll also be school system and business community working together comments, and the SBP will explain and give updates about their programs and their networking. So that is from 5:30 to 7:30 at Harrington Hospital. If you own a business, you're part of a business, you want to see what the business partnership's all about, come on over to Harrington at 100 South Street and join the group, or at least find out what the group can do for you, because they're very active, very successful. I missed, unfortunately, Oktoberfest, I hear, this past Saturday, and that was, again, by the efforts of the business partnership. I remember from their very first meeting talking about events, and the recreation committee, and many others. And they partnered up with the Arts Center for their annual event, and it all just came together. I received pictures while I was away. It was great to see everybody participating, and the way it was described to me was a really wonderful event for Southbridge, something we can be proud of. So hopefully that'll continue. Again, the Southbridge Business Partnership is Wednesday, 5:30 to 7:30 at Harrington. And unless there's something else? No.
Second.
All those in favor? Motion passes. We are adjourned.